Chapter 2340. Lin Feng said, I can agree to your request, but I have some questions that I'd like to ask you. Of course. A smile appeared on Panda's face. Lin Feng asked, can't a soul ferryman escort the souls of the dead to the underworld? Why do we need so many soul ferrymen? Panda said, you don't seem to know much about the underworld. The underworld is not as simple as you think. Moreover, the place where the underworld recruits souls is the underworld, but the underworld is not the only faction in the underworld. Many factions fight for souls of the dead. Panda said. Hearing Panda's words, Lin Feng knew what was going on. He continued to ask, if that's the case, we might be attacked by the other factions in the underworld. Panda nodded and said, that's right, but don't worry. Although we might be attacked by the other factions in the underworld, the truly terrifying existences, such as the underworld emperors, have already fallen into a deep slumber 2 billion years ago. As long as those underworld emperors do not awaken, we don't have to worry too much. Although Panda seemed to be making a solemn vow and spoke with such confidence and calmness. However, Lin Feng could not help but feel a little worried. The underworld was a place where the dead went. There must be endless dangers and dangers hidden there. How could it be easy to enter the underworld and escort souls to the underworld? After pondering for a moment, Lin Feng asked again, what benefits do you get from escorting the souls of the dead to the underworld? Panda said, we can cultivate some of the top divine abilities of the underworld, and we can also receive various resources as rewards from the underworld. Those resources can only be found in the underworld. Cultivators from the outside world can't get them. Divine abilities of the underworld, resources of the underworld. Lin Feng's eyes lit up slightly. Panda said, of course, you'll also receive these things. After we go to the underworld, we can help you apply for the identity of a soul ferryman. Then, you'll have the ability to travel between the two realms. Lin Feng grinned and said, traveling between the two realms? Not bad, not bad. Let's get the identity of a soul ferryman for fun. Panda looked deeply at Lin Feng and smiled. Hee, of course. The identity of a soul ferryman is useful in many cases. There aren't many cultivators who can be chosen as soul ferrymen in the underworld. Lin Feng asked, are we sending the souls of the original ruins realm to the underworld this time? That's right. The original ruins realm opens once every 800 years, and every time it opens, countless people die. Their souls are trapped in the original ruins realm, and they can't enter the underworld. They can only enter the underworld by relying on our souls. Pandas the underworlds as underworlds to reincarnate. The underworld's underworld? Panda smiled and said, we traverse the two realms of Yin and Yang all year round, but we've only heard of the 6 paths of reincarnation and have never seen it. Even the creatures of the underworld have probably never seen it. That can't be, right? Then why is there talk of reincarnated experts? Lin Feng asked, puzzled. The experts you're talking about must be existences with heaven-defying cultivation. After they die, their corpses can be dissected. Once they're dissected, they won't fall into hell or enter the cycle of reincarnation. Instead, they'll be directly reincarnated. In fact, it's equivalent to a remnant soul entering the body of a pregnant woman's fetus. Because the fetus's brain hasn't developed yet, these experts will be reincarnated after their corpses are dissected. Panda explained. Lin Feng was very surprised. He hadn't expected the legendary reincarnation to be like this. Only peerless experts could dissect their corpses. Presumably, there were many restrictions to dissecting their corpses. Even if one's cultivation was high enough, whether or not they could dissect their corpses depended on other conditions. What's the fate of the dead souls that enter the underworld? Lin Feng asked. Panda said, that's not necessarily true. Some might become nourishment for the underworld's creatures to cultivate. Some might have their souls scattered, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, earth to earth, turning into the most primitive energy and returning to heaven and earth. Some might become underworld soldiers. I see. Lin Feng nodded. The conversation with Panda had given him a new understanding of the underworld. Swoosh! At this moment, there was a flash of light. Panda took out a black robe and threw it to Lin Feng. What's this? Lin Feng asked. The underworld envoy robe. After wearing it, it can isolate the aura of the living. If you don't wear it, the living will enter the underworld and stay there forever. Panda said. After hearing Panda's words, Lin Feng didn't dare to hesitate and quickly put on the underworld envoy robe. Why aren't you wearing it? Lin Feng looked at Panda and the others. Panda pointed to his forehead. At this moment, Lin Feng saw a rune appear on Panda's forehead. Zhu Yan, the Hell Fiend, and the three overlords of the great beasts had mysterious runes on their foreheads. Panda said, this is the Underworld Envoy rune. With the Underworld Envoy rune, we naturally don't have to wear it. You don't have the Underworld Envoy rune, so you have to wear it. Lin Feng nodded. At this moment, the surrounding wind howled. Black fog rolled. Ghostly aura filled the air. Soon after, hordes of dead souls swarmed in from all directions. Give me back my life. Give me back my life. I died so miserably. I died so miserably. I want all of you dead. I want all of you dead. The countless dead souls let out eerie voices that made one's hair stand on end. Some of the dead souls had even turned into evil spirits. These dead souls were all top-notch geniuses when they were alive. They entered the primordial ruins realm to participate in the prodigy ranking battle in search of opportunities, but in the end, they died in this place. However, this was the cruelty of the world of cultivators. Everywhere was filled with death and slaughter. It was the same in the primordial ruins realm. Panda took out a soul-summoning bell and held it in his hand. He gently shook the soul-summoning bell. 108,000 years in the mortal world. An instant in the underworld. Lonely souls will not be reincarnated. We will send you to the 9 underworlds. Panda was chanting some kind of incantation. When the dead souls heard the incantation, they immediately quieted down. Line up, Zhuyin shouted. The densely packed dead souls lined up. Chapter 2341. The black fog churned with a sinister aura. Wherever it passed, all living beings avoided it. Otherworldly soldiers are passing through. Retreat. Some cultivators in the distant forest saw the army shrouded in black fog and turned pale with fright. As the saying went, all living beings should retreat when otherworldly soldiers pass through. Those who stood in the way would be sent to the Yellow Springs. Many cultivators knew that otherworldly soldiers passing through wasn't a myth or legend. It was something that happened in reality and could be seen on many occasions. Now that these cultivators saw otherworldly soldiers passing through, they were both frightened and depressed. Many cultivators believed that it was extremely inauspicious to encounter otherworldly soldiers passing through. Damn, so escorting dead souls into the underworld looks like otherworldly soldiers passing through. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. He'd seen otherworldly soldiers passing through a few times. Only now did Lin Feng understand what otherworldly soldiers were. There are many types of otherworldly soldiers passing through. Escorting dead souls into the underworld is one type, and otherworldly soldiers or otherworldly soldiers appearing is another type. Lin Feng asked, which faction of the underworld do those otherworldly soldiers and otherworldly soldiers belong to? Many factions of the underworld recruit otherworldly soldiers, and otherworldly soldiers belong to the underworld. As emissaries of hell, You must be very familiar with the underworld, right? Lin Feng asked curiously. Lin Feng had heard too many rumors about the fleeting underworld. Things like Yama's Palace, the Yellow Springs River, the Gates of the Abyss, and so on and so forth. They were all legends about the underworld. Actually, we've never entered the underworld. Oh, why is that? Aren't you escorting dead souls into the underworld? Why haven't you entered the underworld? Lin Feng asked, puzzled. It's true that we're escorting dead souls into the underworld, but the living beings of the underworld will hand over these dead souls at the Bridge of Helplessness. Only after crossing the bridge can you be considered to have entered the underworld's territory. We're not allowed to cross the bridge. If they don't let you cross, you can sneak over and take a look. Lin Feng said. Zhu Yan rolled his eyes and said, Do you think those people from the underworld are idiots? If you sneak over, you'll definitely be discovered. It's not like no one has ever done such a thing in the past. They secretly crossed the bridge, but the final result was that they became one of the souls of the dead. He was killed. Lin Feng asked. Zhu Yan nodded and said, Yes, that's right. The black fog swept up a large number of dead souls and quickly left. The cultivators in the forest could finally breathe a sigh of relief when they saw the ghost soldiers leaving quickly. Lin Feng and the others escorted this group of souls into the passage to the underworld. This passage exuded a cold and terrifying aura. Living people were not allowed to enter. If a living person accidentally entered this place and had no way to escape, they were destined to die. About 3 days later, a huge whirlpool appeared in front of them. Streams of yin qi were emitted from the vortex. We're here, Zhu Yan said. The netherworld. Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. They'd finally arrived at the netherworld. The netherworld was a place. It was full of mystery, strangeness, and the unknown. Now that he was about to enter the legendary netherworld for the first time, even though Lin Feng was used to seeing all kinds of storms and waves, he couldn't help but feel a little excited. Zhu Yan said, We'll be passing through the Yin Corpse King's territory first. The Yin Corpse King isn't a good person. He loves to hunt down the emissaries of hell, so be careful later. Lin Feng said with a wry smile, It looks like the netherworld is really full of danger. Zhu Yan said, Of course. Do you think we're going on a trip to relax? The netherworld is a place full of dangers. The slightest carelessness can lead to death. Who knows how many living beings have died in the netherworld since ancient times? Just as Zhu Yan finished speaking, whoosh, there was a flash of light, and Lin Feng and the others entered the netherworld with the souls. Endless death energy surged, wanting to devour Lin Feng's life. This was the netherworld. There was death energy everywhere. This was the reason why living beings would die when they entered the netherworld. The death energy would continuously devour the lifespan of living beings. And if a cultivator's lifespan was taken, only death would await them. Lin Feng realized that the netherworld envoy robe he was wearing had a miraculous effect. The surging death energy was all blocked by the netherworld envoy robe. The netherworld envoy rune on Zhu Yan's forehead also emitted a mysterious power that protected his body, preventing him from being corroded by the death energy. Speed up! Panda Cat, who was at the front, shouted. He wasn't willing to stay for long because the netherworld was very dangerous. Although the strongest power in the netherworld was still the underworld. However, other than the underworld, there were many terrifying powers in the netherworld. Some powers weren't much weaker than the underworld. The current underworld was no longer the underworld that could unify the netherworld. This was because when the great sage equaling heaven caused trouble in the underworld, many living beings saw that the underworld wasn't invincible. Thus, Some of the forces that had originally submitted to the underworld began to resist the rule of the underworld, which led to the current situation of the netherworld being divided. Lin Feng and the others escorted the army of dead souls and quickly flew into the depths. Suddenly, a series of sharp and ear-piercing screams flew over from afar. Black fog rolled in the distance. In the black fog, terrifying living beings appeared one after another. Those living beings were wearing loose black robes, and their faces couldn't be seen clearly. Only a pair of pale green eyes could be seen. "The soul catchers are here. Kill them!" Panda Cat shouted loudly. Boom, boom, boom. Panda Cat, Zhu Yan, and the Hell Demon Beast, the three overlords of the ferocious beasts, all attacked those soul catchers. Both sides were engaged in a great battle. Soul catchers were constantly killed, but there were also many soul catchers that devoured a large number of souls. Soul catchers? They should be ghosts. Lin Feng directly took out the ghost-raising jar. Then, he activated the ghost-raising jar. Whoosh, whoosh. Cold wind swept through heaven and earth. The powerful devouring power enveloped the densely packed soul catchers. One by one, the soul catchers flew quickly toward Lin Feng. Many soul catchers let out sharp and terrifying screams. This was a type of soul attack. Sensing danger, the soul catchers wanted to use the soul attack to defeat Lin Feng. However, Lin Feng's soul was strong enough, and Lin Feng's soul was protected by a supreme treasure like the Chaos Ancient Lamp, so he wasn't affected by these soul catchers at all. However, these soul catchers couldn't resist the devouring power of the ghost-raising jar. This treasure was simply too powerful. It directly devoured the densely packed soul catchers. "Damn, you're good, brother. You're still the best," Zhu Yan suddenly exclaimed. "Hee hee, it's all thanks to this treasure," Lin Feng said with a smile. Chapter 2342. Underworld, one of the three supreme realms. It was on par with the Heaven Realm and the Chaos Fantasy World. This was a world that was a level higher than the 3,000 Great Worlds. The underworld was not as dark as one imagined. This was a foggy world. There were all kinds of strange flowers and herbs growing here. These were all strange flowers and herbs of the underworld that could not be seen in the outside world. The ghost army continued to move forward. There were countless underworld creatures attacking Lin Feng and the others to steal their souls. But they were all repelled by Lin Feng and the others. "We're about to reach the Corpse King's territory. Everyone be careful," Cat Bear said in a deep voice. The Zhu Yan's expression became serious. Lin Feng's heart trembled. Corpse King, one of the overlords of the underworld. When he was chatting with the Zhu Yan, Lin Feng had also asked about the Corpse King. He had obtained some information about the Corpse King from the Zhu Yan. The Corpse King was said to be an emperor-level existence. He had already lived for an extremely long time, so long that many people did not know how long the Corpse King had lived. The Corpse King had spent most of his time sleeping, because the Corpse King had already reached old age. Although an emperor had an incomparably long lifespan, an emperor would still grow old. In order to continue living, these ancient experts would usually choose to sleep. This was because sleeping could reduce the consumption of one's life energy to the greatest extent. The Corpse King would occasionally wake up. Normally, when the Corpse King woke up, it would be time for the Corpse King to eat. The most worrying thing about going through the Corpse King's territory was that the Corpse King would wake up from his sleep. If the Corpse King woke up, it would be extremely troublesome. An existence like the Corpse King, even if he was old and weak, no longer had the strength of the past. But the Corpse King's strength was still unimaginably strong. An existence of this level would need to personally appear. As long as a portion of his power descended, he would be able to kill gods and demons. Along the way, Everyone was praying that they would not encounter the Een-Corpse King awakening. At the end of the earth, a low voice sounded, unknown time, finally awakened from his sleep, laughing at the world. I am still unparalleled in the world. When the voice rang out, the Zhu Yan's expression changed. The Een-Corpse King has awakened. His voice became extremely solemn. The awakening of the Een-Corpse King was not a good thing for them. Panda Cat said, "Speed up. We need to rush out of the Een-Corpse King's territory as fast as possible." Everyone nodded and increased their speed to the maximum. The black fog rolled violently in the air. Within the black fog, the army of the dead trembled. These dead souls were also afraid of the Een-Corpse King's arrival, because if the Een-Corpse King appeared, they would become its food. Buzz, suddenly, a pair of cold eyes appeared in the sky. It was a pair of eyes that could not be described with words. Those eyes seemed to contain billions of worlds. Een-Corpse King, Scarlet Ape's voice trembled. At the very least, Panda could not help but stop. A great emperor. Lin Feng was shocked. In the past, great emperors only existed in various stories and legends. Lin Feng had heard too much about the great emperors, but he had never seen a real great emperor. For example, the demon lord could no longer be called a great emperor. In the past, he was a great emperor at his peak, but now he was only a remnant soul. But the Een-Corpse King was different. Although the Een-Corpse King was old and weak, and its battle strength was not at its peak, it was still terrifying to the point of suffocation. Emissary of the underworld. The cold voice suddenly resounded between heaven and earth, causing everyone to feel a chill all over their bodies. At that moment, Lin Feng had the urge to turn around and leave. The Een-Corpse King's strength was indescribable with words. "Yes, Lord Een-Corpse King, we are willing to offer you 10,000 souls. Please let us pass so that we can report to the underworld." Panda Cat said, "Ha ha ha." The Een-Corpse King suddenly laughed and said, "Every time this king revives, I have to devour more than 1,000,000 top-quality dead souls. And the dead souls here are all top-quality dead souls. There should be more than 1,000,000 in total, which is perfect for this king to devour." These dead souls were all living beings that died in the original Ruins world, including the cultivators that entered the original Ruins world, the pets of the cultivators, the various fierce beasts of the original Ruins world, etc. Those dead living beings had powerful cultivation when they were alive, and their talent was astonishing. After death, their souls were even purer. The purer the soul, the purer the soul, the more valuable it was. Lord Een-Corpse King, your appetite is a bit too big. If you devour all the dead souls, how can we report to the underworld? Panda Cat said. Lin Feng muttered in his heart. This Panda Cat's guts were really not small. He actually dared to bargain with the Een-Corpse King, a great emperor-level existence. Humph! The Een-Corpse King could not help but let out a cold snort and said, "If you 5 emissaries of the underworld leave now, you can still live. If you don't know what's good for you, this king will devour all of you as well." The Een-Corpse King said coldly. "Een-Corpse King, you are old," Panda Cat said with a grin. "What did you say?" The Een-Corpse King's eyes suddenly shot out endless killing intent. The Een-Corpse King was indeed old, but he would never allow others to say that he was old. This was the Een-Corpse King's biggest taboo. Many powerful beings were like this. When their lives came to an end, they would fear death. They would not allow others to mention the word old in front of them. And Panda Cat had clearly violated the Een-Corpse King's taboo. Lin Feng could not help but wipe away his cold sweat. Panda Cat's words had completely angered the Een-Corpse King. No one knew what Panda Cat was thinking. This fellow was truly the best in the world of acting tough. He dared to act tough in front of a great emperor-level existence. Acting tough had reached a new height. but after acting tough, he would have to face the wrath of the Een Corpse King. He might have had a chance to escape earlier, but now the Een Corpse King would not let anyone go. Am I wrong? Een Corpse King, you are really old. You are really old. You are really old. Panda Cat continued. Couldn't this fellow just say it once? He actually repeated the words, "You are really old," 3 times. Do you know the price of angering this king? The Een Corpse King's cold eyes were filled with endless killing intent. The surrounding space began to distort. A terrifying emperor's aura spread out, covering the entire world. Fuck, this lunatic, now that he has angered the Een Corpse King. This is troublesome. Zhu Yin could not help but curse. Lin Feng also gave a bitter smile. The Een Corpse King was enraged. Chapter 2343. Now that the Een Corpse King was truly enraged, its killing intent soared to the heavens. Feeling the terrifying killing intent from the Een Corpse King, Lin Feng's expression turned solemn. He was not familiar with the underworld and had been following Panda Cat. Now that he wanted to escape, it would not be easy. It was very likely that he would be lost in the underworld. It had to be said that Panda Cat was truly a scammer. Panda Cat said, "I was just speaking the truth. Is there a need to be so angry? Being angry is something that only weaklings do. Een Corpse King, you are strong enough. Now that you are angry because of a single sentence, it is not because your cultivation is weak, but because your heart has become weak." Shwa shwa. At this time, the Een Corpse King seemed to have reached the end of its patience. 2 cold eyes of death shot towards Panda Cat. It contained a terrifying might that could destroy the heavens and earth, causing people to be shocked and moved. Great space shift. At this time, Panda Cat roared and stomped his right foot on the ground. Immediately after, lines of formation runes condensed and enveloped everyone within. Shwa. Light flashed. Everyone disappeared, without a trace. The Een Corpse King's attack landed in the air. Shwa. 1,000 miles away. With a flash of light, Lin Feng and the rest appeared with the ghost army. Damn, what kind of technique is this? Zhu Yin suddenly exclaimed. It was clear that Zhu Yin did not know much about Panda Cat's techniques. Although Zhu Yin had interacted with Panda Cat several times, he knew that Panda Cat's cultivation was unfathomable, but he never thought that Panda Cat would be so heaven-defying. Under the eyes of a great emperor, he actually brought so many people and escaped without a trace. This kind of technique was truly unfathomable. Powerful, truly powerful. Lin Feng's heart was also filled with shock. Panda Cat's techniques were truly too shocking. He had screwed over a great emperor. The Een Corpse King should be furious right now, right? Furthermore, Lin Feng was the successor of the Heavenly Master's bloodline. He knew how terrifying Panda Cat's teleportation array was. The Great Spatial Shift Array was an extremely difficult ability to perform. Every time the Great Spatial Shift Array was activated, the more people it transported, the more difficult it would be to perform. Not only did Panda's teleportation array cover Lin Feng, Zhu Yin, and the Hell Demon Beast, the 3 overlords of the ferocious beasts, it also covered millions of souls. Lin Feng didn't know how difficult it was to use this kind of space-shifting array, and there was something else that was even more shocking. Lin Feng found it hard to believe that Panda Cat was able to use a teleportation array right under the Een Corpse King's nose. This was setting up a teleportation array without being detected by a great emperor's senses. Lin Feng finally knew why Panda Cat wanted to anger the Een Corpse King. Panda Cat had infuriated the Een Corpse King in order to set up the space-shifting array. When the Een Corpse King was extremely angry, the Een Corpse King's perception of the outside world would decrease. That was why Lin Feng felt that Panda Cat had schemed against the Een Corpse King. And the actual situation was exactly as Lin Feng had guessed. Panda Cat was truly not simple. His methods were shocking and his intelligence was outstanding. Not everyone could scheme against a great emperor. Speed up, leave the Corpse King's territory. Panda Cat said in a deep voice. The ghost army's speed was raised to the limit as they quickly rushed forward. The underworld creatures had a very strong concept of territory. An existence like the Corpse King would not easily leave his territory and set foot in other territories. But as a nether emissary of the underworld, he could lead the ghost army to quickly pass through various territories. Of course, there was a reason for this, because the current underworld was equivalent to the Central Dynasty, and a powerful existence like the Corpse King was equivalent to a powerful marquis that ruled over a region. It was just that the underworld could still rule over the underworld and the various territories in name. But the reality was that the underworld had already lost this kind of ruling power and was unable to centralize power. The lords of the various territories also had an attitude of paying lip service to the underworld. Of course, although the lords had an attitude of paying lip service to the underworld. However, the underworld emissaries bringing the dead souls back to the underworld was a kind of order and rule of the underworld. The lords did not dare to break this rule. Any world had its own rules. When these rules were broken, it was not far from destruction. However, some powerful lords had tyrannical cultivations. Although they would not break the rules of the underworld, they dared to kill the underworld emissaries and devour the ghost army. An existence like the Corpse King dared to do this kind of thing. Under Panda Cat's lead, everyone quickly rushed out of the Corpse King's territory. They continued to rush forward. Woo, 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 woo. Not long after, a bugle horn sounded in front of them. From afar, Lin Feng saw two torrents colliding. It was two huge armies of underworld soldiers fighting against each other. The leader of one of the Nether Legion stood on the back of a huge black bone dragon. The leader of the underworld soldiers was wearing a black armor that covered his body tightly. One could only see a pair of blood-red eyes that flashed with a cold light. The leader of the other underworld soldiers' army was riding on a huge white bone beast. It was unknown what kind of beast it was, but it was abnormally huge and had a pair of terrifying wings. As for the leader, it was a golden skeleton. In the skeleton's hand was a battle sword. It's the Black Hell Devil King and the Skeleton Evil King. Zhu Yan was shocked. Who are these people? Lin Feng asked. These are the two terrifying territories of the underworld. Their territories are next to each other, so there are frequent battles. Zhu Yan said, the underworld was the same as the outside world. There were conflicts of interests. There were also large-scale battles. Compared to the battles in the outside world, it was even more tragic. Let's take a detour. Panda Cat looked deeply at the Black Hell Devil King and the Skeleton Evil King, then led everyone to change their original route. There was no way they could pass through the battle in front of them. If they insisted on going, death was the only way out. The ghost army changed their route and left quickly. About 5 days later, Zhu Yan finally showed a relieved expression and said, "We will reach the underworld's territory in at most 2 hours. By then, our mission will be over." Lin Feng could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Everything he had seen and heard along the way had broadened his horizons. Now that the mission was about to be completed, he could not help but feel excited. After the mission was completed, he would receive a huge reward. After another half an hour, the originally slightly dim world instantly became as dark as ink. It was as if there was a terrifying existence. It chased after them. Chapter 2344. It seems like something terrifying is chasing after us. Lin Feng's expression became extremely grave. Behind him, Something terrifying was rapidly approaching, and the surrounding world had become dark. It was also caused by that terrifying creature, but as for what that creature was, it was still unknown for the time being. Perhaps Juyen and the others would know. After all, they had been Netherworld envoys for many years. They definitely knew many things that he didn't know. Don't look back. That's a creature in the darkness. It's extremely terrifying. If you look back, you'll suffer a great calamity. We don't need to pay attention to those creatures in the darkness, said Juyen. Juyen said. Lin Feng's heart trembled slightly. It seemed that there were truly too many terrifying existences in the Netherworld. Many of them were filled with mysteries and unknowns. They had to be careful when dealing with those terrifying existences. Otherwise, they might lose their lives. Lin Feng calmed his mind and quickly rushed forward. I know your secret. You have a huge secret that very few people know about, but I know about. Do you want to know? If you want to know, then stop. I can tell you this secret. Suddenly, a gentle and enticing voice rang out in Lin Feng's mind. The voice was very alluring. It was very bewitching. Lin Feng knew that the owner of the voice was the creature in the darkness. He ignored the owner of the voice. He wanted to use this method to confuse Lin Feng. It wasn't an easy task. Your secret is extremely shocking. Don't you want to know? This secret is related to your origin. The voice rang out again. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. This fellow was truly a little strange. The undying god's blood once lit the 9 prefectures' lantern, illuminating the world. The sovereign's blood dyed the world's mountains and rivers blood red. Your ancestor is really amazing. The voice rang out again. This time, Lin Feng was extremely shocked. This guy was too strange. He actually knew about his origin. How did he know? Lin Feng hadn't revealed anything. Could it be that this guy could steal his soul and memories? If that was the case, it was too terrifying. You must be wondering why I know so much about you. You don't need to be curious. I've lived for a very long time, and I know too many things. I can see through your origin, your secrets. There's nothing I don't know. Stop, we can have a good talk. Aren't you curious about your third identity? Your identity isn't simple. It's really not simple. The Undying Clan and the Sovereign Clan's bloodline inheritance are powerful enough, but your origin isn't limited to that. The third identity is the most shocking. I can tell you that in this world, perhaps only I can solve the mystery in your heart. The voice rang out once again. Stop and have a chat with him. The secret of my birth is about to be revealed. How exciting! At this moment, a bewitching voice resounded in Lin Feng's mind. This voice seemed to be the demonic will in Lin Feng's heart. This demonic will. It had been awakened by the mysterious existence in the darkness. And this demonic will, it continued to bewitch Lin Feng. Lin Feng's eyes became a little confused. In his heart, he was struggling. The secret of his third identity. How could Lin Feng not want to know? Of course, he wanted to know. And he really wanted to know. This might be the root cause of Lin Feng's demonic will. When there was desire in his heart, it was easy to give birth to demonic will. Just like Lin Feng now. But there was another voice in Lin Feng's mind. Don't agree to it. Don't agree to it. Once you agree to it, you will be doomed eternally. This voice was dissuading Lin Feng, and the other voice was bewitching Lin Feng. 2 different voices. They continued to resound in Lin Feng's mind. Lin Feng felt like his head was about to split open. Gradually, the bewitching voice gained the upper hand. Lin Feng's eyes became more and more confused. He seemed to want to stop and have a good talk with the existence in the darkness about his third identity. At that moment, Lin Feng suddenly realized that someone was calling him. Brother, are you okay? Brother, wake up. The voice came from afar, like a ray of light in the endless darkness, and this ray of light pointed out the way forward for him. Lin Feng's confused eyes became clear in an instant. Lin Feng realized that Zhu Yan was waving its big claws and patting him, calling him. Zhu Yan said when it saw Lin Feng wake up. "It seems that you were tricked." Lin Feng couldn't help but feel scared. He had indeed been tricked. If it wasn't for Zhu Yan, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Fortunately, Zhu Yan had woken him up in time. "Many thanks," Lin Feng said. "Ha, there's no need to be so polite. When I first entered the underworld, I was tricked just like you. Fortunately, there was an old man who led me. Otherwise, I would have been done for." Zhu Yan looked cold, but after getting to know it better, Lin Feng realized that it was a very warm person. Zhu Yan was the type of person who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. "The creatures in the darkness are very strange. They know a lot about me," Lin Feng said. "That's right. This kind of creature is extremely strange. They can steal other people's soul memories and use the weaknesses in other people's soul memories as a breakthrough point to bewitch them. I didn't tell you this before because I wanted you to experience the terror of these creatures and let you know their methods. Next time, if they use the same method to bewitch you, you will have a countermeasure." Zhu Yan said. Lin Feng nodded. The group continued forward. It didn't take long for them to enter the underworld's territory. After entering the underworld's territory, the creatures in the darkness left. "Now that we're in the underworld's territory, we can relax. There won't be anyone who's so reckless as to cause trouble for us anymore," Zhu Yan said. The ghoul army moved through the underworld's territory, occasionally seeing patrolling Yin soldiers. When the Yin soldiers saw that the Netherworld envoys were sending the ghoul army over, they didn't question Lin Feng and the others. The next day, Lin Feng saw a surging river. "That's the Yellow Springs River," Zhu Yan said. Zhu Yan nodded. Lin Feng was shocked. Chapter 2345. According to myths and legends, after death, one had to pass through the gates of hell and pass through the Yellow Springs Road. Between the Yellow Springs Road and the underworld was the River of Forgetfulness. The River of Forgetfulness's water was blood yellow in color, filled with wandering souls that could not be reincarnated. Insects and snakes were everywhere, and the stench of blood filled the air. There was a bridge of forgetfulness on the River of Forgetfulness, and an old woman sat beside it. Her name was Mengpa. To cross the River of Forgetfulness, one had to cross the Bridge of Forgetfulness. To cross the Bridge of Forgetfulness, one had to drink Mengpo's soup. Without drinking Mengpo's soup, one could not cross the Bridge of Forgetfulness. Without crossing the Bridge of Forgetfulness, one could not reincarnate. Only by crossing the Yellow Springs River could one reach the Yellow Springs Road. Lin Feng saw the first river, one of the three great rivers of the underworld. The other two rivers were the River of Styx and the River of Forgetfulness. Lin Feng looked at the Yellow Springs River and saw the water flowing endlessly. There were countless vengeful evil spirits in the river, and their roars shook the sky. These vengeful spirits wanted to pounce on Lin Feng and the others and kill them. However, they would never be able to get out of the Yellow Springs River. Those who fall into the Yellow Springs River will never be reincarnated. These evil spirits are evil spirits that can never be reincarnated. Scarlet Ape said, "I heard that the Yellow Springs River is highly toxic. I wonder if that's true?" Lin Feng asked as he recalled some of the myths and legends about the Yellow Springs River. When he was young, Lin Feng had been cultivating in Jialan Academy. Back then, when the demons were wreaking havoc, Lin Feng went underground to slay the demons and obtain the Yellow Springs River. However, Lin Feng guessed that the Yellow Springs River he obtained back then was only called the Yellow Springs River. It was not the Yellow Springs River of the underworld at all. After all, how could the water of the Yellow Springs River of the underworld flow into the mortal world? That's right. The Yellow Springs River is extremely toxic. It is said that if a great emperor falls into the Yellow Springs River and is washed by the water for a period of time, his body will be destroyed. Scarlet Ape said. Lin Feng was shocked. Wasn't the Yellow Springs River a little too terrifying? I heard that the weak water of the undying world is highly toxic. I wonder how it is compared to the Yellow Springs River. Lin Feng said, weak water is also highly toxic, but I have never seen weak water before, so it is difficult for me to evaluate it. Zhu Yan said. Lin Feng nodded and looked at the surging Yellow Springs. Lin Feng took out a spatial porcelain bottle. A powerful suction force gushed out from the porcelain bottle. A large amount of Yellow Springs water was swallowed by the spatial vase. The Yellow Springs River was such a treasure. How could he let it go? It was not easy for him to come to the underworld, so he naturally had to collect more Yellow Springs water. Kacha. However, what made Lin Feng gloomy was that after the spatial porcelain bottle swallowed the Yellow Springs River water, the Yellow Springs River water was swallowed up. The spatial porcelain bottle began to crack. Ordinary spatial porcelain bottles were unable to withstand the Yellow Springs River's poison and were corroded. Lin Feng took out the primordial magic cauldron. Large amounts of Yellow Springs water were sucked into the primitive magic cauldron. Although the water of the Yellow Springs was highly toxic, it couldn't destroy Lin Feng's primordial demonic cauldron. After filling the primordial demonic cauldron, Lin Feng was finally satisfied. TSK, to be able to withstand the corrosion of the Yellow Springs River water. Your demonic cauldron is not simple. Zhu Yan smacked its lips and said, Hee, I got it by chance. Lin Feng said with a smile. The army of dead souls crossed the stone bridge above the Yellow Springs River, then walked along the Yellow Springs Road, heading deeper into the underworld. Dense blood-colored flowers grew on both sides of the Yellow Springs Road. Those blood-colored flowers emitted a demonic power. That power seemed to want to pull people into an endless illusion. Those were red spider lilies. They were also known as flowers of death and flowers of illusion. They could create extremely terrifying illusions, causing people to lose themselves in them and be unable to extricate themselves. However, Lin Feng's netherworld envoy robe was extraordinary and was able to withstand the power of the red spider lilies. Is the Yellow Springs Road connected to the River of Forgetfulness? Lin Feng couldn't help but ask. Zhu Yan nodded and said, That's right. The Yellow Springs Road is connected to the River of Forgetfulness. Once we get to the River of Forgetfulness and turn in our mission, we'll have completed it. They walked for about a day. Lin Feng finally saw the River of Forgetfulness. Above the River of Forgetfulness, there was a dense ghostly aura. The evil spirits in the River of Forgetfulness were even more terrifying than the ones in the Yellow Springs. Lin Feng saw a huge stone tablet beside the River of Forgetfulness. There were 3 blood-colored words written on the tablet. These 3 words were River of Forgetfulness. These 3 words exuded a demonic and terrifying aura. Below the 3 blood-red words was a line of ancient poetry. My soul lingers on the 3 roads river. Only pity the red spider lilies. Never see each other, missing each other forever. Drinking the water of my river of forgetfulness, not knowing the heartbroken person. Helpless bridge of helplessness, broken village terrace. This ancient poem mentioned the red spider lilies, the river of forgetfulness, and the bridge of helplessness. It was a perfect match for this place. The water in the river of forgetfulness is called the water of forgetfulness. This water is very terrifying. It can erase anyone's memories. Zhu Yan said, the water of forgetfulness. I've only heard of it before, but now I've seen it with my own eyes. I'll collect some of this water of forgetfulness. Who knows? I might be able to use it in the future. Lin Feng took out a porcelain bottle and began to collect the water of forgetfulness. The water of forgetfulness was not as poisonous as the water in the Yellow Springs, so the porcelain bottle was not damaged. Lin Feng was only satisfied after he had collected an entire bottle of water of forgetfulness. The army of dead spirits arrived at the Bridge of Helplessness. From afar, Lin Feng saw many Netherworld operatives. The one leading them was a general. We've sent the army of dead spirits. Panda Cat said, Good, here's your reward. The Netherworld general took out 4 storage rings and tossed them to Panda Cat. This time, we've brought a new comrade. He can become a Netherworld envoy and fill the gap from before. Panda Cat said. Lin Feng walked out and cupped his fists at the Netherworld general. The Netherworld general looked at Lin Feng and nodded. Since that's the case, I'll report this matter to the higher-ups. Let the magistrate make the decision. After saying that, the Netherworld general took out a talisman and chanted a few incantations on the talisman. The talisman began to burn fiercely. Not long after, an ancient voice rang out. You can become a Netherworld envoy. After that voice rang out, a bolt of lightning descended from the sky and struck Lin Feng's forehead. The bolt of lightning turned into a Netherworld envoy talisman. The ancient voice from before did not speak again. Lin Feng touched the Netherworld envoy talisman on his forehead. He could vaguely feel that he had formed a strange connection with the Netherworld. This is your reward. The Netherworld general tossed a storage ring to Lin Feng. Lin Feng kept the storage ring. Let's go, Panda Cat said. Lin Feng and the others did not dare to hesitate. They quickly followed Panda Cat and left. Clearly, they were a small team, and Panda Cat was the strongest. She was the leader of this small team. Now that you've become a Netherworld envoy, from now on, unless it's a ghost emperor or a ghost immortal, other evil ghosts will not be able to harm you. Zhu Yan said with a smile. Chapter 2346. Underworld envoys can suppress evil spirits. Lin Feng could not help but ask. Of course, Zhu Yan pointed at the Underworld envoy rune on his forehead and said, Do you see that? This Underworld envoy rune gives us the power to suppress evil spirits. When the time comes, you can also sense the power of the Underworld envoy rune and try to use it for yourself. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Could he use the Underworld envoy rune to subdue the Ghost Emperor in the Ghost Rearing Jar? If he could subdue the Ghost Emperor, then he would have another heaven-defying expert by his side. He nodded and said, When I have the chance, I will try out the power of the Underworld envoy rune. When they arrived at the outskirts of the Underworld, Panda looked at Lin Feng and said, Kid, are you wondering why we need another Underworld envoy? Lin Feng was indeed wondering about that. Panda, Zhu Yan, and the Hell Demon Beast were the 3 overlords of the great beasts. The 4 Underworld envoys could complete the escort mission, so there was no need for him to join them. All things are divided into yin and yang, and heaven and earth are divided into the 5 elements. When the 5 elements are complete, the great Tao will return to 1. There are only 4 of us, so we can't complete the 5 elements. There are many things that require the 5 elements to be complete before they can be on the right track. Once the 5 elements are missing, there might be unforeseen changes that we can't even imagine. Especially in a place like the Underworld, we have to pay attention to these things. Panda said. Lin Feng could understand Panda Panda's words. When the 5 elements were complete, they might be able to prevent some evil things from happening. This was related to a mysterious and profound problem of luck. It was difficult to explain it with words. Some things were destined by fate, just like what Panda Panda had said before. Lin Feng would appear at the place where they would meet up. This was destined by fate. How often will we be out on missions? Lin Feng asked. Not necessarily, Panda Panda said. When the time comes, I will inform everyone. Through the Underworld Envoy rune, I can send messages to the 4 of you. What about during normal times? Will I receive a mission on my own? Lin Feng asked. However, the specific arrangements will depend on the Netherworld's arrangements. Us Netherworld envoys are different from other Netherworld envoys. Many Netherworld envoys have fixed missions. For example, the Netherworld envoys in the Sea region are each in charge of an area of the Sea region. The souls of the dead cultivators in the Sea region are led by them. However, us Netherworld envoys are not in charge of an area. We will go wherever there is a mission. Panda said. Lin Feng laughed bitterly and said, It seems like we are considered to be contracted Netherworld envoys, and those Netherworld envoys are considered to be part of Hell's staff. Ha 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 ha. Panda Panda, Scarlet Ape, Hell Demon Beast, and the 3 overlords burst into laughter when they heard Lin Feng's explanation. The Zhuyan nodded and said, Actually, you're right. We don't belong to the underworld, so we're not part of its staff. We're under a contract, and our relationship with the underworld is one of cooperation. There's a way to break this cooperation. Panda Panda said, That's why I don't like to call myself Netherworld envoys. I like to call myself spirit ferryman, ferrying those vengeful spirits that wander between heaven and earth. Panda Panda paused for a moment, then continued, Let's not waste any more time here. Follow me to do something big. Something big. What big thing? Lin Feng and the others looked at each other. Aren't the Black Hell Demon King and the Skeleton Evil King fighting? Now that the 2 of them are not in their nests, let's go take a look and see if there are any treasures in their nests worth taking. Panda Panda said with a grin. I'll go. Lin Feng and the others could not help but cry out. They almost fell to the ground. Panda Panda was really fearless. If they really stole the Black Hell Demon King and the Skeleton Evil King's treasures, wouldn't those 2 underworld lords go crazy with anger? They would definitely lead an army to hunt them down. Although they knew that the consequences would be unimaginable, Panda Panda's suggestion was too tempting. Lin Feng, Zhu Yan, and the Hell Demon Beast were all eager to give it a try. All right, let's do something big and rob the 2 underworld lords of their treasures before leaving. Lin Feng said. Lin Feng's personality was also fearless. All these years, in order to obtain all kinds of treasures, he had been to many dangerous places. This place is closer to the Skeleton Evil King's territory. Let's go there first. Panda Panda said. The others naturally had no objections. Then, the 5 of them quickly rushed to the Skeleton Evil King's territory. 3 days later, they arrived at the Skeleton Evil King's territory. There were underworld soldiers patrolling the Skeleton Evil King's territory. However, as an underworld envoy, it was not difficult to avoid the underworld soldiers' detection. They went deep into the territory. Finally, they arrived at the Skeleton Evil King's base. It was a huge mountain range that stretched out into the distance. The mountain range was called the Skeleton Mountain Range. It was rumored that the Skeleton Evil King was a skeleton at the bottom of the Skeleton Mountain Range that had awakened his spiritual wisdom and cultivated his skills. In the end, he became an underworld lord. Within the Skeleton Mountain Range, the security was extremely tight. Moreover, there was a huge skeleton mirror floating above the skeleton mountain range that could see through the sky. Panda almost drooled when he saw the mirror of skulls. Do you see that? It's said that the skeleton mirror was forged from immortal bones. It can see through mountains and rivers. Its power is unimaginable. It was placed in the skeleton evil king's territory to protect it. If we can obtain it, we'll be heaven-defying. Panda kept rubbing his hands. Clearly, he was very interested in the skeleton mirror. Lin Feng said, "It has an owner. I don't think we can get it. Let's think of a way to sneak in and see if there are any other treasures." However, with the skull mirror hovering above the Skull Mountain range, I'm afraid we'll be discovered if we barge in recklessly. Zhuyan said, "I remember that Boss Panda has a death cloak here. It's said to be a supreme treasure refined by the first death god. Wearing the death cloak can make one invisible." "It's that powerful?" Lin Feng was shocked. The name of the first death god was enough to tell that he was an extraordinary existence. He might even be an immortal realm expert. The death cloak was definitely a heaven-defying treasure. Panda waved his paw, and the death cloak flew out. "Come, let's go in and take a look." The death cloak enveloped the five of them. Lin Feng and the others headed deeper into the Skeleton Mountain range. There were countless patrolling underworld soldiers all around. Above the Skeleton Mountain range was the skeleton mirror that could see through the sky. However, Lin Feng and the others relied on the death cloak to deceive everyone and enter the depths of the Skeleton Mountain range. Chapter 23:47. In the Skeleton Mountain range, there were many huge caves. Many of the caves were filled with underworld soldiers and underworld generals. Zhu Yin said, "The treasury must be heavily guarded. I don't think it'll be easy for us to enter." Panda said, "Let's not enter the treasury. Let's go to the Skeleton Evil King's training ground and see if there are any amazing treasures there." Everyone began to search for the Skeleton Evil King's training ground. There was a huge canyon in the depths of the Skeleton Mountains. The canyon emitted a terrifying aura that made Lin Feng feel suffocated. Two huge stone statues stood at the entrance of the canyon. The one on the left was a god of darkness holding a demonic sword. It looked like it was about to transform into an immortal demon god. The one on the right was a skeletal god of war holding a bone blade that could shatter the heavens. The entire canyon was surrounded by a huge array, and the security was extremely tight. Wanting to enter, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It looks like the Skeleton Evil King's training ground is in the depths of the canyon. That guy is really careful. He didn't feel safe in his own nest and set up so many powerful formations. The Hell Demon Beast said, "It's better to be safe than sorry. The Skeleton Evil King should know this very well." The three overlords said, "The formations here are very complicated. It won't be easy to break them. The most troublesome thing is the skeleton mirror. It's too difficult to not cause any disturbance when breaking the formation. If we cause any disturbance, we'll be discovered by the skeleton mirror. When that happens, we won't be able to hide anymore." Lin Feng said with a serious expression. Zhu Yin said, "It's really troublesome." Panda said, "I'll be in charge of breaking the formation. Old Mo, you'll be in charge of isolating the fluctuations from the formation. Is that okay with you?" Old Mo, that was what Panda called Lin Feng. He was the fifth underworld envoy to join them. He was also the last underworld envoy to join them. Panda had given Lin Feng such a nickname. Lin Feng nodded. "No problem. Heh, it's great to have two people who are proficient in formations." Scarlet Ape grinned. Lin Feng and Panda began to work together to crack the array. The array was extremely complicated. Lin Feng did not have any confidence in cracking it, but Panda seemed to be able to crack it easily. Clearly, Panda's understanding of formations had reached the point where he could appear and disappear unpredictably. It was enough to shock Lin Feng. Even Lin Feng's attainments in array formations could not be compared to Panda Cat's. Of course, this had something to do with Lin Feng's short cultivation. After all, Lin Feng was the successor of the Celestial Master sect. As his cultivation increased, his study of array formations deepened. When the time comes, Lin Feng believed that in this world there were only a handful of people who could be compared with the Celestial Master Taoism in terms of formations. With Lin Feng's current attainments in formations, it was naturally not difficult for him to be responsible for isolating the sound and the energy fluctuations generated when breaking the formation. 6 hours later, the formation cracked open. After the 5 of them entered the array, then Panda closed the array again, and it looked exactly the same as before. From this point, one could see how powerful Panda Cat was. It was easy to destroy, but hard to repair. That was the reason. After entering the canyon, everyone continued to walk inside. The yin qi in the canyon was extremely heavy, and a large number of yin spirits had formed. Those yin spirits wandered around. If they saw living beings enter, those yin spirits would pounce on them without hesitation and immediately kill the living beings who dared to trespass into the canyon. First, it was the array. There were densely packed yin spirits in the array. One had to admit that this skeleton evil lord was really too cautious. These yin spirits did not discover Lin Feng and the other 4 hiding under the death cloak. They came to the deepest part of the canyon. There was a white bone hall in the deepest part of the canyon. This white bone hall should be the place where the skeleton evil monarch cultivated. Now, the door of the white bone hall was tightly shut. The door was densely covered with restrictions. In order to enter the white bone hall, one had to break the restrictions. The restrictions on the white bone hall were more powerful and complicated than the ones outside. Zhu Yan cursed. Damn, why is the skeleton evil lord so cautious? Is there some shocking secret in the place where he cultivates? Could it be? Is there some powerful treasure in the place where he cultivates? The eyes of Lin Feng and the others lit up. They also felt that Zhu Yan's words were very likely. Otherwise, the skeleton evil lord would not have to be so careful. Break the array, Panda Cat said. Lin Feng and Panda Cat continued to work together. This time, the time needed to break the array was twice as long as the previous one. The array was broken. The 5 of them pushed open the door, entered, and then closed the door again. Inside the white bone hall, the ground was paved with white bones. The area of this palace was very large. It was about 10,000 square meters in size, and such a huge hall. Below it were all white bones. It was unknown how many people's bones were needed to cover the entire hall. Moreover, the bones were very thick. It was probably no less than 10 meters thick. The entire hall was emitting a cold and terrifying aura. Look, 5 stone steels, Zhu Yan exclaimed as he pointed to the depths. The 5 of them quickly rushed over. The 5 stone steels were suspended in midair. Each of them was emitting a terrifying aura. They did not know what the 5 stone steels were made of. They were emitting an ancient aura as if they had been around for hundreds of millions of years. It's actually these 5 stone steels. Panda Cat exclaimed in disbelief when he saw the 5 stone steels. What stone steels are these? Lin Feng asked. Zhu Yan, the hell demon beast, and the other 3 overlords looked at Panda Cat curiously. The reason the skeleton evil lord was guarding the white bone hall so carefully, obviously, it was because of these 5 stone steels. These 5 stone steels probably had an extremely powerful origin. This is the legendary pentakills steel. Panda Cat said, "Pentakill steel?" Lin Feng and the others were puzzled. This was the first time they had heard of this name. I once read a rumor about the pentakill steel in a Taoist scripture. It was said that the pentakill steel was made from an ancient demonic stone that was formed when the era collapsed. It was refined by many experts and gradually became a great killing weapon. In the primordial era, countless Khanate life forms died under the suppression of the pentakill steel. Panda Cat said, after hearing Panda Cat's words. Lin Feng, Zhu Yan, and the hell demonic beast all took a deep breath. If the 5 stone steels were really the same as what Panda Cat had said, that would be too heaven-defying. Chapter 2348. Lin Feng and the others were filled with excitement. The pentakill tablet was so powerful that it could drive anyone crazy. Anyone would want to have such a treasure for themselves. Lin Feng said, "It seems that the skeleton evil emperor hasn't refined the pentakill tablet yet. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been placed here." Panda Cat nodded. That should be the case. Panda Cat suddenly exclaimed in surprise. He seemed to have realized that something was wrong. What's wrong? Lin Feng and the others looked at Panda Cat. Something's wrong with the pentakill tablet. Panda Cat frowned. Something's wrong? What's wrong? Lin Feng asked, puzzled. The pentakill tablet lacks a special feeling. Panda Cat frowned. A special feeling? What kind of feeling? Zhu Yan asked. Even though the qi of the pentakill tablet is extremely strong and terrifying, it has killed many Xiantian cultivators in the past, so its qi should be even more bloodthirsty and cold. I wouldn't be surprised if the qi of the pentakill tablet was 100 times stronger, but the qi of the pentakill tablet in front of us hasn't reached that level yet. Panda Cat said, "Could it be that the pentakill tablet in front of us is a fake?" Zhu Yan couldn't help but ask. "Or is it a replica?" "No, it shouldn't be a fake, nor is it a replica." Panda Cat narrowed his eyes and said, "The scripture I read in the past also said that the pentakill tablet had to be refined many times before a perfect pentakill tablet was created. The pentakill tablet we see now might not be the legendary pentakill tablet, but an imperfect one. But even if it's imperfect, the qi of these 5 tablets is terrifying enough. I can feel the terrifying power contained within them," said the hell demon beast. "A complete pentakill tablet is a treasure that can kill Xiantian life forms. Although these 5 tablets aren't perfect, the materials used to refine them are exactly the same as those used to refine a perfect pentakill tablet. Even the evil skeleton king couldn't refine the 5 monoliths, which means that they're extraordinary. Once they're refined, they'll be terrifying. But refining 5 monoliths like that won't be easy," said the evil skeleton king. Panda Cat said, "If the 5 of us refine 1 tablet each, we should be able to refine the pentakill tablet, right?" asked the 3 overlords. "This method is indeed worth a try. Refining such a treasure requires the use of origin essence blood." Panda Cat forced a drop of his blood essence. The origin blood essence emitted intense waves of energy. Soon after, the drop of essence blood landed on a stone tablet. After the stone tablet absorbed Panda's origin blood essence, the word suppress appeared on it. It was a blood-red word that emitted an extremely demonic qi, which made people tremble in fear. When he stared at the word suppress, he would feel a sense of oppression that made it hard for him to breathe. It was as if there was an ancient mountain pressing down on them. The word suppress was exceptionally terrifying. Thinking about it, the word was just a word that appeared on the tablet. It was obvious how terrifying the pentakill tablet was. Lin Feng also took out a drop of his blood essence and dripped it on a tablet. The word kill appeared on that tablet. Zhu Yan, the hell demon beast, and the other three overlords also dripped their blood essence on the pentakill tablet. The words destroy, slash, and rend appeared on the other three tablets. Suppress, kill, destroy, slash, rend. It seems like each pentakill tablet has a different function, and the 5 tablets can form a very special connection. Panda said, dripping my blood essence on the pentakill tablet only activated the words on the tablet, but there was no connection between me and the tablet. Obviously, even my blood essence couldn't leave any mark on the tablet. Lin Feng said. Zhu Yan said, yeah, if the pentakill tablet could be refined so easily, the skeleton evil king would have refined it long ago. It wouldn't be our turn to refine the pentakill tablet. Let's try and see if we can refine the pentakill tablet. Panda said. He took the lead and injected his spiritual power into the pentakill tablet, trying to refine it. After all, the pentakill tablet had absorbed his blood essence, so there was more or less a connection between them. It might be easier to refine it, but when he tried to refine the pentakill tablet, he realized that it was just a dream. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. A moment before, when he was refining the 5 kills tablet, he had realized that there was a strange strength inside that prevented people from refining it. That might be the real reason why he couldn't refine the pentakill tablet. I have an idea, Hell Demonic Beast said. What is it? Everyone looked at Hell Demonic Beast. I have an ancient method called Hell's Covenant. This method is to sign a contract with something that has spirituality. It's a cooperative relationship, not a relationship of refinement. For example, we can cooperate with the pentakill tablet. Normally, we can activate the pentakill tablet's power, but when the pentakill tablet needs us to do something, we'll have to help the pentakill tablet fulfill its request. If we can't do it, we'll be controlled by the pentakill tablet. Hell Demonic Beast said. Damn, isn't this Hell's Covenant a little too much? If the pentakill tablet wants us to do something that we can't do, we'll just be courting death if we go there. Are we really going to do it? Zhu Yan couldn't help but roll his eyes. If you want to get something, you'll have to pay a price. Think about it. If you think you can take the risk, we'll use Hell's Covenant to sign a contract with the pentakill tablet. If you don't want to take the risk, we'll give up. Hell Demonic Beast said. Everyone fell into deep thought, but soon they came to a decision. Wealth came from danger. Even though the 5 kill tablets in front of him were not the 5 perfect 5 kill tablets in the myths and legends, these 5 kill tablets were terrifying enough. It was worth taking the risk. All right, we'll use Hell's Covenant to sign a contract with the pentakill tablet. Everyone nodded. Hell Demonic Beast started chanting an incantation when he saw that everyone had reached a consensus. It was an ancient incantation. When the incantation ended, Hell Demonic Beast asked for a drop of blood essence from Lin Feng and the others. The blood essence burned. It fused with the incantation and entered the pentakill tablet. Hell's Covenant has been formed. The immortal execution tablet of the pentakill tablet will form a contract with you. Suddenly, an ancient voice echoed in Lin Feng's mind. The pentakill tablet with the word execution written on it flew toward Lin Feng. Chapter 2349. The other 4 steels flew towards Panda Cat, Zhu Yan, and the Hell Demon Beast, the 3 overlords of the feral beasts. The pentakill steel had a spirit. Otherwise, it would not have communicated with Lin Feng through spiritual consciousness. We can't stay here for long. Let's go, Panda said, after keeping the pentakill steel. Lin Feng also kept the pentakill steel. Everyone used the death cloak as cover and left the Skeleton Mountain Range. After leaving the Skeleton Mountain Range, the 5 of them headed to the Black Hell Demon King's territory. They looted the Skeleton Evil King's pentakill steel. Lin Feng and the rest were naturally looking forward to getting something good from the Black Hell Demon King. After all, the Black Hell Demon King was a powerful existence many years before the Skeleton Evil King. When the Black Hell Demon King became an overlord, the Skeleton Evil King was still a nobody. The Black Hell Demon King's headquarters was in the Black Hell Demonic City. The security here was also extremely tight. There were netherworld soldiers patrolling everywhere in the huge city. Lin Feng and the rest used the old method to enter the Black Hell Demonic City with the help of the Death Cloak. There was an army of netherworld soldiers stationed in the Black Hell Demonic City. Although the Black Hell Demon King led the army to fight against the Skeleton Evil King, only a portion of the army was left. However, the Black Hell Devil King had only taken away a portion of the Nether soldiers. There were still a large number of Nether soldiers stationed within the Black Hell Devil capital. Lin Feng and the rest arrived at the Black Hell Demonic City's Imperial City. This was the residence of the Black Hell Demon King. The Imperial Palace was huge and had many halls. After the 5 of them sneaked into the Imperial Palace, they began to look for the Black Hell Demon King's palace. Ordinary treasures could not pique the interest of Lin Feng and the rest. There might be something extraordinary in the Black Hell Demon King's palace. That palace should be the main palace. Zhu Yan pointed at a huge palace in the depths. The palace was as black as ink and was 300 meters tall. It was as majestic as a mountain. Even from a long distance away, they could feel a heavy sense of oppression from the huge palace. That palace was like a crane in a flock of chickens amidst the densely packed palaces. That palace should be the main palace. The 5 of them quickly walked towards the main hall. Soon they arrived. There were no patrolling guards around the main hall, which made Lin Feng and the others puzzled. Something's not right. Let's be careful. Lin Feng reminded. Panda and the others nodded. They pushed the palace door open and entered the palace. It was pitch black inside the palace. A pair of pale green eyes stared at him through the black fog. He looked at the 5 people who had entered the palace. When they saw that pair of green eyes, the faces of Lin Feng and the others changed. Let's go. Cat Bear shouted in a deep voice. That mysterious existence made his hair stand on end. There was actually such a terrifying existence in the main palace of the Black Hell Devil King. Fresh flesh and blood. How nostalgic! A cold voice sounded. A withered hand reached out from the black fog. It was a hand that had already rotted away. The palm was still emitting a foul smell. That palm directly enveloped Lin Feng and the others, making it impossible for them to escape. Do it! Cat Bear shouted in a deep voice. He was the first to attack. He slapped his palm towards the withered hand. Then Lin Feng, Zhu Yan, and the Hell Devil Beast, the 3 overlords, all attacked. Boom, 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 boom. Lin Feng and the others all gathered their powerful attacks and blasted at the withered palm. Boom. The 2 sides suddenly collided fiercely. Cat Bear, Lin Feng, Zhu Yan, and the Hell Devil Beast, the 3 overlords, were all blasted away. Damn, so powerful. Panda Cat immediately yelled and turned to dash outside. The mysterious existence in the darkness waved his right hand. The black fog rolled and blocked the way. That terrifying existence did not intend to let Lin Feng and the others leave. Such delicious flesh and blood should stay and become my food. The existence let out a sinister voice. His voice was very hoarse. It was also very old. Obviously, this existence was old and weak. What kind of existence is this? Lin Feng's expression was serious. He opened the heavenly demon snake eye. Then he saw the terrifying existence in the black fog. That existence had the body of a human and the tail of a crocodile. Its body was densely covered in dragon scales. Its head was neither human nor beast. It was extremely ugly. After seeing that ugly existence, Lin Feng could not help but exclaim, "A foreign god! It's actually a foreign god." In the past, Lin Feng had killed dozens of foreign gods in the ancient celestial city with the heaven-shaking stone steel. He had also seen the foreign god on the ancient celestial ship that carried Great Emperor Grimm. Therefore, he recognized at a glance that the terrifying existence in the hall was a foreign god. The foreign god was very terrifying and ambitious. The end of many great eras was related to the foreign god. Since ancient times, countless beings had died tragically at the hands of the foreign god. The otherworld gods were definitely the most powerful enemies in this universe. The three highest realms, the 3,000 great realms. They had fought the foreign god countless times and suffered heavy losses before they were able to temporarily seal the passage from the foreign world to this universe. The foreign god was the public enemy of this universe. Therefore, when he saw that the mysterious existence in the hall was actually a foreign god, Lin Feng was extremely shocked. What? A foreign god? The expressions of Panda Cat and the others changed abruptly. Obviously, they knew how terrifying the foreign god was. That's right. I am a foreign god. I was suppressed in the underworld in the past. A few years ago, I was released by the Black Hell Demon King. The foreign god's cold voice sounded. The foreign deities are punishable by death. As the Lord of the Underworld, the Black Hell Demon King actually released you? Why is that? Lin Feng asked. Heh. The foreign god sneered, but did not answer Lin Feng's question. At this moment, Lin Feng could not help but think of a certain possibility. He could not help but frown slightly. Panda Cat said, "It seems that the Black Hell Demon King wants to get something important from you, right? But he's asking a tiger for its skin." The foreign god said, faintly, "Ambition can often make people take risks. Not only is the Black Hell Demon King ambitious, he is also extremely dissatisfied with his current situation. The Black Hell Demon King has been cultivating for far too long. He has begun to move from the peak of his middle age to the beginning of his old age, but he has been unable to break through his shackles. He needs to take a gamble. If he does not, when he enters old age, he will no longer have any hope of breaking through his shackles. An old overlord is bound to be targeted by many overlords." Chapter 2350. The underworld was a very cruel world. There were a total of 36 overlords in the underworld. Although these 36 overlords all had heaven-defying cultivation bases, these 36 overlords couldn't always maintain their rule. As one of the three supreme realms, the underworld was a place where one could cultivate to become a great emperor. Of course, cultivating to become a great emperor wasn't an easy task. There were too many difficulties. However, in a place like the underworld, there was no lack of talented people. When these overlords grew old, there would definitely be some young and powerful great emperors who wanted to replace them. If the new great emperor accumulated enough strength, he would often have a huge appeal. And this appeal was not something that the old overlords could compare to. In order to slow down their aging, the overlords who gradually grew old needed to increase their cultivation. The longer they lived, the more they didn't want to die. These old overlords naturally had the same mentality. They were unwilling to die. In order to live a little longer, they would do anything. Back then, the blood of the great emperor dyed the mountains and rivers of the foreign world red. I thought that the great emperor clan had long been wiped out, but now it seems that there are still survivors living in the world. The foreign god continued, his cold eyes looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng frowned. It seemed that there were indeed ancestors of the great Emperor clan who had fallen in the foreign world. Who do you think you are? How dare you be rude to the great Emperor clan? Lin Feng looked at the foreign god indifferently. From the foreign god's simple words, Lin Feng knew the foreign world had a blood feud with the great Emperor clan. He naturally wouldn't be polite to the foreign god. Brat, you're about to die, yet you still dare to speak to me in such a tone. You really don't know what death is. I will eat your flesh and drink your blood later. The foreign god's cold voice sounded. Da-da-da. In the darkness, the sound of footsteps suddenly sounded. The foreign god walked towards Lin Feng, and the others step by step worked together to kill him, divide up his source energy. Panda licked his dry lips and said, "Now, Lin Feng and the others had no way out. The 5-kill steel should be able to come in handy now." Lin Feng said, Panda Cat, Zhu Yan, and the Hell Demon Beast, the 3 overlords of the ferocious beasts, each had their own Dharma treasures. However, the 5 of them joined forces. It was still the 5-kill tablet that posed the greatest threat. The destructive power it produced was also the most powerful. Everyone took out their 5-kill tablets. The 5-kill steel released waves of terrifying killing intent that filled the huge palace. After seeing the 5-kill steel, the foreign realm god's expression changed greatly. 5-kill tablet? How is that possible? How can you control the 5-kill steel? It's clearly in. The foreign realm god cried out in alarm. Soon, he realized that something was wrong. Then, he sneered. So, it's a defective product. I thought it was the real 5-kill tablet. The 5-kill tablet that you have is not much of a threat. Really? We'll only know after we fight. Zhu Yan sneered. Powerful magic power was injected into the 5-kill tablet. Suppress, kill, destroy, slash, split. 5 blood red words appeared. Emitting a demonic light, the 5-kill steel vibrated with a terrifying energy wave that could destroy the world. Lin Feng and the others controlled their 5-kill tablets to attack the foreign realm god. Bang! 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 The foreign realm god waved his right fist and smashed it at the 5-kill tablet. Punch after punch landed on the 5-kill tablet. Instantly, the 5-kill tablet was sent flying. The foreign realm god was simply too tyrannical. He was simply invincible. The strength he displayed did not seem like he had been suppressed for tens of thousands of years at all. Moreover, the foreign realm god was now old and frail. Now he should be at his weakest. However, when he was at his weakest, he was still so strong. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the foreign realm god was when he was at his peak. Try to create a connection between the 5 steels. Otherwise, we're destined to lose. Panda said in a deep voice. Everyone nodded with a solemn expression. Then, they continued to control the 5-kill tablet they controlled. At the same time, they were sensing the aura of the other 4 5-kill tablets. Buzz, waves after waves of violent fluctuations spread out, shaking the void. The 5 blood-red words on the 5 steels emitted an extremely demonic aura. Waves of terrifying energy fluctuations surged out. The 5 blood-red words seemed to have the power to destroy heaven and earth. Suppress, exterminate, slash, rend. The power of the 5 words seemed to have merged together. The 5 steels used the 5 blood-red words as a medium and formed a very strange connection. The 5 steels soared into the sky. They combined together to form a huge steel. The 5 ancient words suppress, exterminate, slash, rend were arranged in the order of the 5 elements. They were arranged together. Excellent. Let's activate the 5-kill tablet together to suppress and kill the foreign realm god and snatch his origin. Panda shouted loudly. Powerful magic power surged out of his body and poured into the 5-kill tablet. At the same time, Lin Feng, Zhuyan, the Hell Demon Beast, the three overlords all attacked. None of them were stingy. Powerful magic power surged out and poured into the 5-kill tablet. After receiving a large amount of magic power, the 5-kill tablet's power increased greatly. Waves of power that could destroy the heavens suddenly erupted. The 5 of them worked together to activate the 5-kill tablet. Boom, boom, boom. The 5-kill tablet charged at the foreign realm god. Break! The foreign domain deity shouted coldly as he punched towards the 5-kill tablet, wanting to destroy it. However, the foreign realm god underestimated the power of the 5-kill tablet. The 5-kill tablet was too powerful after the 5 of them merged into one. It actually had the upper hand in the collision with the foreign realm god. The foreign realm god was forced to retreat. The foreign realm god's expression darkened, as if he did not expect the 5-kill tablet to be so powerful. In the foreign realm god's eyes, the 5-kill tablet in front of him was not the legendary 5-kill tablet, so it should not be too powerful. However, the foreign realm god now knew how wrong he was. What a 5-kill tablet! Although it's not the perfect 5-kill tablet, it's still able to unleash unimaginable power. However, it's still not enough. Today, I'll break the 5-kill tablet. The foreign realm god's voice was cold. He opened his hand, and a pitch-black world appeared in his hand. My divine ability is called Foreign Realm's Descent. It's a supreme divine ability created by an expert who surpassed the sovereign realm in the foreign realm. Today, I'll let you 5 ants know the power of this divine ability. The foreign realm god sneered and opened his hand. The illusory foreign realm god flew out and collided with the 5-kill tablet. Chapter 2351. The illusory world formed by the foreign world was extremely powerful and terrifying. When it collided with the 5-kill tablet, the 5-kill tablet was forced to retreat. Lin Feng and the other 4 joined forces to control the 5-kill tablet, but it seemed to be difficult for them to suppress the foreign world god. The foreign world god's strength was beyond their imagination. Naturally, the 5 of them had ugly expressions on their faces. This is troublesome, Zhu Yin said with a gloomy expression. Scarlet Ape's expression darkened. This fellow's cultivation is far more terrifying than we've imagined. This guy has been suppressed for so many years and is still so old. Yet, he still has such terrifying strength. What a freak. We have to end this quickly. Dragging it out won't do us any good. Cat Bear said in a low voice. Lin Feng and the others naturally understood this. The current situation was extremely dangerous. If they dragged it out and alerted the Netherworld army outside, they would not be able to escape if they were surrounded by the Netherworld army. No matter how strong an individual's cultivation was, there was no way to deal with a huge army unless their cultivation was so heaven-defying that they could ignore the number of enemies. However, who in this world could ignore the threat of the Netherworld army? Even the great emperors could not ignore the threat of the Netherworld army because the Netherworld army was simply too powerful. They possessed extremely tyrannical power and had the ability to be almost immortal. Other than being wary of the Netherworld army outside, Lin Feng and the others were also worried that the foreign world god would contact the Black Hell Devil King. At that time, the Black Hell Devil King would return to the Black Hell Demonic City. At that time, they would not be able to leave. Therefore, at this point in the battle, everyone knew that they could not afford to delay any longer. They had to end the battle quickly, kill the foreign world god, and leave the Black Hell Demonic City as soon as possible. Use the power of the Netherworld Envoy rune, Cat Bear said in a low voice. Cat Bear said in a low voice. The Netherworld Envoy rune was very special. It was said that the Netherworld Envoy rune could communicate with the ancient Netherworld King. by borrowing the power of the Netherworld King. The Netherworld King. He was the lord of the underworld. However, the Netherworld King was too mysterious. Even to the beings of the underworld, the Netherworld King was an ethereal existence. For example, the King Yenluo, the Lord of Hell, the Lord of Hell, the Lord of Hell, and the various feudal lords. These were the true figures who had appeared in the Netherworld and held great authority over the Netherworld. The King Yenluo of Hell was more like a fleeting legend. However, countless creatures of the underworld still believed in the Underworld King. They believed that the Underworld King really existed in this world and was protecting the ancient underworld. And now, Lin Feng and the others were activating the Underworld Envoy rune to summon the power of the Underworld King. Panda Cat, Zhuyin, and the Hell Demon Beast. These three ferocious beast overlords had been Underworld envoys for many years. They could use the Underworld Envoy rune to summon the power of the Underworld King at any time. However, this was the first time Lin Feng had used the Hell King rune to summon the power of the Hell King. Therefore, he felt a little unfamiliar with it and failed to summon it a few times. However, on his 9th attempt to summon the power of the Underworld King, he succeeded. A powerful force poured down from the void. The 5 Netherworld envoys all summoned the power of the Netherworld King. The power of the Nether King gathered together. Within the void, a mysterious, ancient, and powerful existence appeared. That existence was wearing a huge robe. The robe was engraved with the most ancient runes. That mysterious existence had been born for tens of thousands of years. He stood in the void, like a god that had existed since ancient times. People could not help but feel an urge to worship him. He was wearing a crown. It was a crown that exuded boundless majesty. It represented the identity and status of the Underworld King, the Underworld King's shadow. Lin Feng looked at the silhouette, astonished. Although he could not see his face clearly, Lin Feng knew that the shadow was the Underworld King's shadow. That mysterious man, he was the Underworld King, an ancient existence that was so terrifying that it could change the color of heaven and earth. When the epic changes, the Underworld King will not die. He controls the underworld and respects all living things. Low voices rang out one after another. The Underworld King stepped forward and lifted the 5-kill tablet. Upon seeing this, Lin Feng and the others were extremely shocked. They had activated the Underworld Envoy's runes to fight against the foreign god. However, they did not expect that the Underworld King's shadow would lift the 5-kill tablet. Panda exclaimed, "Could the rumor be true?" "What rumor?" Zhu Yin asked curiously. Lin Feng, the Hell Demonic Beast, and the 3 Overlord Ferocious Beasts all looked at the panda. Panda said, "Rumor has it that the 5-kill tablet is the Underworld King's treasure. Now that the Underworld King's shadow has appeared and lifted the 5-kill tablet, the rumor might be true." Panda's words greatly affected Lin Feng and the others. The Underworld King himself was a legendary existence. However, many legends were not groundless. Just like what they saw before them, the Underworld King's shadow lifted the 5-kill tablet and charged toward the foreign god. Bang, bang, bang. The 5-kill tablet and the foreign god's shadow collided once again. Sounds of violent collisions could be heard one after another. It shook the void. It reverberated through heaven and earth. Both sides engaged in an intense battle. After a few hundred rounds of collisions, finally, Lin Feng's side gained the upper hand. The Underworld King's shadow lifted the 5-kill tablet and unleashed an attack that was too powerful. Its power could be described as earth-shattering. The foreign god's attack was finally defeated. Crack, 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 crack. The sound of cracks could be heard. the illusory image of the foreign world created by the foreign realm god began to crack. Upon seeing this, Lin Feng and the others were shaken. They activated the Underworld Envoy's runes with all their might. The Underworld Envoy's runes summoned an even more powerful force that surged into the Underworld King's shadow. The Underworld King's shadow became even more powerful. The Underworld King's shadow lifted the 5-kill tablet and unleashed an even more powerful attack. Bang! Another violent collision. Sound could be heard. Crack! Crack! After this collision, the foreign god's shadow was completely shattered. The Underworld King's shadow lifted the 5-kill tablet and charged toward the foreign god. I am an undying and indestructible existence. The foreign god's roar shook the sky as he punched at the Underworld King's shadow. However, the foreign god was already in an extremely old state. After such a long battle, he had consumed a lot of energy, so he was gradually unable to hold on. After hundreds of collisions, the foreign god finally couldn't hold on anymore. No, why is it like this? I can't accept this. The foreign god roared angrily. The next moment, the Underworld King's shadow took out the 5-kill tablet. The 5-kill tablet ruthlessly smashed into the foreign god's body. The foreign god's body directly exploded. Only a ball of origin was left floating in the air. Lin Feng and the others quickly rushed over and divided the origin of the foreign god. Chapter 2352. After leaving the demonic metropolis, the 5 of them quickly rushed towards the passage that led to the outside world. They did not dare to stay in the underworld any longer because the 5 of them had caused a huge disaster. First, they stole the 5-kill tablet. Then they chased after the foreign god. If the skeleton evil lord and the demonic king knew about this, wouldn't they go mad with anger? Now, Lin Feng and the rest were in a hurry to digest the things they had obtained. For Lin Feng, there were even more things to do. First, he had to refine the 5-kill tablet. Secondly, he had to see what the reward from the Netherworld General was. Lastly, Lin Feng had obtained a portion of the foreign god's origin and was in a hurry to refine it. The rewards this time are too great. However, let's not accept any missions for a period of time. Even if it's a mission from the underworld, we have to reject it. We'll accept missions after the underworld is settled. Panda said. Everyone naturally agreed with Panda's suggestion. It would be unwise to accept missions now. Now, the underworld was a place of trouble for Lin Feng and the rest. Rumble. The void behind them shook violently. Densely packed Netherworld soldiers rushed over, forming a black mass. The person at the front was riding on a pitch-black ancient dragon, the demonic king of Black Hell. When Lin Feng saw that existence, his expression changed. The demonic king of Black Hell had chased after them. It seemed that the demonic king of Black Hell had already known about the foreign god's death. Underworld envoys of the underworld, I didn't find trouble with you when you ferried the soul army into the underworld. You actually dared to sneak into my demonic metropolis and kill someone very important to me. You're courting death. The demonic king of Black Hell's voice was filled with boundless killing intent. Panda sneered and said, "Foreign gods deserve to be punished. Not only did you release the imprisoned foreign gods, but you also made some unknown agreements with them. Do you know that your actions are enough for the underworld to send troops to suppress you? Although the underworld's strength is not what it used to be, it's still not a problem for them to destroy you. However, this matter has already passed with the foreign god's death. Let's each take a step back. You go your way, we'll go our own way. How about we stay out of each other's business?" The foreign realm god sneered and said, "Lowly ants, how can this sovereign let you off after spoiling this sovereign's plans? Once I kill you, everything will become a secret. Woo, 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 woo. The sound of a horn. The sole army of Black Hell's army. Panda's words of Black Hell did not have any effect. Lin Feng and the others could only run for their lives. Otherwise, once the Netherworld soldiers caught up to them, they would be doomed. As the saying goes, when it rains, it pours. Not long later, another army's army. This army was the skeleton evil monarch's underworld soldiers. Despicable underworld envoy. How dare you steal this sovereign's treasure? You deserve to die 10,000 times. Skeleton evil lord's cold eyes looked at Lin Feng, Panda, Zhuyan, the Hell Demon, and the three overlords. Skeleton evil lord was about to go crazy. His killing intent soared. He had painstakingly obtained the 5-kill tablet. He hadn't even managed to refine it, and surprisingly, Lin Feng and the others had stolen it. Skeleton evil lord could not wait to cut Lin Feng and the others into pieces. This is troublesome. Lin Feng and the others could not help but smile bitterly. 2 armies of underworld soldiers were chasing after them. It was simply too despairing. However, they had no other choice. They could only push their speed to the limit and flee. Let's go to the territory in front. Panda said he wanted to lure the 2 armies of underworld soldiers into the territory of a lord. The underworld was a huge place. Therefore, every lord's territory was huge. However, most of the places were uninhabited. Only the core areas. Only then would there be underworld soldiers stationed there. Under normal circumstances, the underworld soldiers controlled by the lords could pass through the territories of other lords. However, these underworld soldiers could not go to the other party's core areas. They could only pass through the uninhabited areas quickly. If the underworld soldiers went to the core areas, this would be seen as a provocation. There would definitely be a huge battle between the 2 sides. For example, the battle between Skeleton Evil Lord and Black Hell Demon King was like this. Skeleton Evil Lord was a middle-generation lord. He was young and strong. Black Hell Demon King was a lord who was going from his prime to his old age. His control was gradually declining. Therefore, Skeleton Evil Lord started to provoke Black Hell Demon King. In reality, he wanted to take over Black Hell Demon King's territory. Black Hell Demon King wanted to protect his dignity and prove that he was not old. Thus, he and the Skeleton Evil Monarch began an intense battle of life and death. However, Skeleton Evil Lord and Black Hell Demon King had reached a temporary consensus. They would temporarily put aside their personal grudges. They would deal with the 5 underworld envoys first. The territory Panda wanted to go to was called the 1,000 Evil Territory. It was said that it was a very powerful lord. This lord was very low-key. However, Lin Feng and the rest were surrounded before they could reach the 1,000 Evil Territory. Kill them! Black Hell Demon King and Skeleton Evil Lord gave the order at the same time. Then, the densely packed underworld soldiers were about to surround and attack Lin Feng and the other 4. The situation could be said to be hanging by a thread. It made one feel hopeless. At this moment, rumble! A loud sound could be heard. In the depths, Ghost Chi was rolling. In the endless Ghost Chi, there was a huge army. The army's aura was many times stronger than the underworld soldiers' aura. It's that mysterious army, the cursed underworld soldiers. The Black Hell Demon King and Skeleton Evil King's expressions became extremely solemn. Even if they were lords of the underworld, there were many things in the underworld that they did not understand. For example, the cursed underworld army in front of them. They had lost themselves after being cursed. They might not even know who they were, but they were abnormally powerful. It was said that this cursed army would enter the wasteland every 1,000 years for a holy war. Now that this army had appeared again, was it going to enter the wasteland for a holy war? This army did not care about Black Hell Demon King and Skeleton Evil Lord's underworld army. They charged into the distance. However, at this moment, Lin Feng hurriedly glanced over. He saw a somewhat familiar figure. Lin Feng thought of that poignant love. Fairy Yuqing was waiting for her lover in a daze. However, she did not see him before she died. Lin Feng felt that the figure in front of him was somewhat familiar. It was Fairy Yuqing's former lover. Chapter 2353. Chu Maxiu was a true heavenly master who received the stone scripture's inheritance. He was extremely powerful, but he was cursed by the heavenly master sect. He lost himself. When Chu Maxiu's mind recovered, he sent a jade tube with some recorded scenes to Fairy Yuqing's residence. Inside the jade tube, he left hand in hand with a female cultivator. Chu Maxiu knew his life was coming to an end. He could no longer give Fairy Yuqing a future. That was why he wanted to use this method to make her give up on him, then forget about him. Who would have thought that Fairy Yuqing was such a devoted person? She changed her name to the Heartless Immortal because she couldn't walk out of her sorrow. She was invaded by an inner demon while cultivating. She suffered a Dao injury that was difficult to treat and died of depression. Before she died, she went to many places to find Chu Maxiu. No matter what kind of harm Chu Maxiu had caused her back then, she still loved Chu Maxiu. She wanted to see Chu Maxiu again before she died. However, Fairy Yuqing didn't see Chu Maxiu again until she died. She died with endless sorrow and regret. Fairy Yuqing didn't know that Chu Maxiu had always loved her. This was also Lin Feng's first time meeting a heavenly master's ancestor. Heavenly masters couldn't meet each other. Otherwise, they would be cursed. However, Lin Feng knew that the heavenly master's curse had already come true on him because he dreamed of Chu Maxiu back then. Meeting in the dream was still meeting, but this time he was seeing the real Chu Maxiu. The curses on Lin Feng's body kept each other in check. Otherwise, he would have died a long time ago. "Senior, save me! Senior, save me!" Lin Feng shouted at Chu Maxiu. However, Chu Maxiu had already lost himself. He didn't hear Lin Feng's call at all. When Lin Feng saw Chu and Maxiu leave, he couldn't help but feel annoyed. At this moment, a thought flashed through his mind. He suddenly thought of the scroll he'd obtained back then. He'd obtained it from Fairy Yuqing's grave. It wasn't a treasure. It was a painting Chu Maxiu had drawn for Fairy Yuqing back then. He quickly took out the scroll and opened it. After the scroll was unfurled, a portrait of a beauty appeared in his line of sight. She was a woman who looked like a fairy from the moon. She was so beautiful that it was suffocating. The woman had a smile on her face. It was a happy smile that came from the bottom of her heart. The beautiful woman in the painting was Fairy Yuqing. There was also a short poem written in the scroll. Jade stove incense, red candle tears, leaning mirror painting hall autumn thoughts, thin eyebrows, hazy temples, long nights cold pillows. Under the parasol tree, it rained in the middle of the night. I didn't know that Li Qing was suffering. Leaf by leaf, sound by sound, the empty step dripped to the light. This poem was personally written by Chu Maxiu back then. He expressed his love for Fairy Yuqing. When Lin Feng took out the scroll, a mournful voice resounded through the world. "Missing you day in and day out. May I know where my husband is? I've searched the world, but I still can't find you. We can only meet again in the next life." It was Fairy Yuqing's voice. Lin Feng seemed to see a scene. In a cave abode, the terminally ill Fairy Yuqing held the scroll her lover had left behind. She softly spoke of her longing. As a result, Fairy Yuqing's last wish before her death was written on the scroll. Fairy Yuqing used to hate Chu Maxiu. She hated him for swearing to her back then. But in the end, he abandoned her. But in the end, Fairy Yuqing forgave him. Most of the time, the deeper the hatred, the deeper the love. On her deathbed, Fairy Yuqing thought of the bits and pieces of her time with Chu Maxiu. It was so beautiful. Fairy Yuqing wished she could return to that time. Time could turn into eternity at that time. But she knew that it was all just a dream. Fairy Yuqing died just like that. She walked through the final days of her life alone. Chu Maxiu, who was already far away, heard Fairy Yuqing's mournful voice before her death. He stopped in his tracks. His originally confused eyes were now filled with an expression of incomparable pain. He seemed to be fighting against something. At this moment, the painting of Fairy Yuqing started to burn. Lin Feng's expression changed when he saw this. But this was a fire of karma without a source. He couldn't stop it. Chu Maxiu walked over from afar. He finally regained a bit of clarity. When he saw the burning scroll, he wanted to stop the flames from destroying it. But he failed. "Senior, save me," Lin Feng cried for help. Chu Maxiu waved his hand. The ghost army charged towards the skeleton evil lord and black Hell Demon King's army. The two sides started fighting. After a dozen rounds, the skeleton evil lord and black Hell Demon King's army was defeated. The rumored cursed army of Een soldiers was simply too terrifying, as expected of the underworld army that was going to the wasteland to participate in the holy war. "Retreat, hurry and retreat," Skeleton Evil Lord and Black Hell Demon King shouted. The ghost army was too strong. There was no way they could fight against it. If the battle continued, the entire army would be wiped out. Skeleton Evil Lord and Black Hell Demon King were very depressed. They led their soldiers and fled. The ghost army didn't chase after them. Lin Feng and the others could finally breathe a sigh of relief. The successor of the Heavenly Master's bloodline. Chu Maxiu looked at Lin Feng. "Yes." Lin Feng said. "How is she?" Chu Maxiu's voice trembled. Lin Feng naturally knew that Chu Maxiu was referring to Fairy Yuqing. Lin Feng said, "After you left, Fairy Yuqing couldn't walk out of her pain. She encountered problems during her cultivation and suffered a Dao injury. In the last moments of her life, Fairy Yuqing went to many places to look for you, but she couldn't find you. In the end, she passed away. How did this happen?" Chu Maxiu muttered to himself. Many years had passed, but Lin Feng hadn't forgotten what had happened that day. When Chu Maxiu learned about Fairy Yuqing's death, he burst into tears. It was the kind of pain that came from extreme sadness. It was so sad that it could break one's heart. Fairy Yuqing's death filled Chu Maxiu with pain and regret. He constantly blamed himself. Perhaps he could have found a better way to make Fairy Yuqing forget about him. However, Lin Feng knew. At that time, Chu Maxiu had run out of time. That was the only way he could have made Fairy Yuqing forget about him, but she was too infatuated. "Our meeting was supposed to be a disaster for you, but fortunately, you still have a few curses in your body that counterbalance the curses of the Celestial Masters. You have to find a way to dissolve the curses in your body as soon as possible. Leave the underworld now. I will soon lose myself again. When that time comes, I'll definitely hurt you," Chu Maxiu said in a low voice. "Senior, take care. When I find a way to deal with the curse of the Heavenly Master's bloodline, I'll definitely come and save you." Chapter 2354. After coming out of the underworld, everyone could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Panda Cat said, "Let's part here. I will contact you when there is a mission." After saying that, Panda Cat took the lead and rushed into the distance. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. This guy was very carefree. Zhu Yin said, "Old Mo, you continue to participate in the assessment trial. We will leave first. Have a safe journey. We will meet again." Lin Feng cupped his fists and said, "Zhu Yin, the hell demon beast." The three overlords also left. Lin Feng found a hidden cave, set up a few restrictions, and began to investigate the rewards. There were a large number of nether crystals in this storage ring. This was a kind of crystal from the underworld. It was very precious, and its quality far exceeded the quality of origin crystals. If one used this kind of nether crystal to cultivate, one's cultivation speed would be many times faster than origin crystals. There were a total of 10,000 such nether crystals. In addition, there were various precious spiritual herbs from the underworld, all of which were more than 100,000 years old and extremely precious. There were a total of 100 stalks. There were also more than 10 types of pills. For example, the mysterious Een pill, the blood underworld pill, and other pills were very beneficial to cultivation. There was also a jade tube. Lin Feng carefully sensed the contents of the jade tube and found that it recorded many things about the underworld, including some things about the underworld and the 36 lords. Of course, the content recorded in the jade tube was relatively simple, and this was the content on top of it. It did not contain any special secrets. In addition, Lin Feng also found an ancient book. This ancient book recorded a divine ability of the underworld. After Lin Feng flipped through it, he suddenly showed an extremely shocked expression, because this divine ability recorded a set of 3,000 great paths. This set of 3,000 great paths was called the Great Darkness Technique, and it was ranked 26th among the 3,000 great paths. This was something Lin Feng did not expect at all. The 3,000 great paths were too precious. The underworld's rewards were so generous. They were even willing to give out the 3,000 great paths as a reward. He did not know if it had something to do with him completing the underworld envoy mission for the first time, or if the underworld's rewards had always been so generous. This was not something Lin Feng could know. Lin Feng's cultivation chant for the Great Darkness Technique. Now was not the time to cultivate the Great Darkness Technique. Then, he sacrificially refined the 5-kill tablet again. Lin Feng had already witnessed the might of the 5-kill tablet. It was indeed very powerful and terrifying, especially when the 5 monoliths were combined into one. It was truly powerful. After all, he had just formed a blood bond with the 5-kill tablet. There were many amazing aspects of this treasure that had yet to be fully displayed. With more research on this treasure, Lin Feng believed that the power of the 5-kill tablet would become stronger and stronger. After refining the 5-kill tablet, Lin Feng took out the most important treasure, the source of the foreign gods. Although this foreign god was old and frail, his strength was still strong enough to make one's soul tremble. From this, it could be seen how extraordinary the source of the foreign gods was. Although he had only obtained 1/5 of the foreign god's origin. But these origins, it was enough to help Lin Feng make another breakthrough in his cultivation. Lin Feng was currently at the 9th level of the True God realm. He was only a step away from the 10th level of the True God realm. As long as he could break through to the 10th level of the True God realm, he would have to prepare to enter the Heavenly God realm. The Heavenly God realm was an important transformation in a cultivator's life. Among the billions of cultivators, those who could break through to the Heavenly God realm could be counted with one's fingers. Once one broke through to the Heavenly God realm, it would be a huge transformation. Not only would one's life force undergo a transformation, one's strength would also undergo an earth-shattering transformation. Ordinary cultivators would experience such a shocking transformation when breaking through to the Heavenly God realm. If Lin Feng broke through to the heavenly God realm, it would be even more shocking. Once Lin Feng broke through to the heavenly God realm, his cultivation would increase greatly. More importantly, he would be able to use his supreme aura without any side effects. This was extremely important to Lin Feng. The source of the foreign gods was gradually being refined by Lin Feng. The powerful source turned into pure energy that flowed within Lin Feng's limbs and bones. It was like a surging river. The energy turned into powerful magic power. Occasionally, there would be sounds of the great Tao coming out from the cave. It was like the intertwining of the heavenly Tao. It was also like an ancient god giving a sermon. The sounds of the Tao lingered. It condensed and did not dissipate. The heavenly Tao did not stop. 10,000 Tao resonated. After 3 days of seclusion, Lin Feng finally came out of seclusion. During this seclusion, Lin Feng's cultivation successfully broke through to the 10th level of the true God realm. In the end, he stopped at the late stage of the 10th level of the true God realm. Next, Lin Feng needed to stabilize his cultivation, to prepare for breaking through to the heavenly God realm. With Lin Feng's accumulation, it would not be easy for him to break through to the heavenly God realm. When the time came, it would definitely be extremely difficult. Therefore, Lin Feng needed to collect all kinds of treasures to refine and stabilize his cultivation. Only when his cultivation had stabilized to a strong enough level could he attempt to break through. If he failed to break through to the heavenly God realm, it would definitely be a disaster. Lin Feng was flying at full speed above the forest. This was the first level of the Heaven's Chosen Dojo. The Heaven's Chosen Dojo was divided into 5 levels. He began to look around for all kinds of treasures. For example, the heavenly Tao source and other treasures were treasures that could directly increase one's cultivation. Lin Feng liked to look for such treasures the most. Once he found them, he could continue to stabilize his cultivation. The first level of the Heaven's Chosen battlefield was also very chaotic. Cultivators could be seen everywhere fighting for various benefits. Lin Feng continued to go deeper into the Heaven's Chosen Dojo. The first level of the Heaven's Chosen Dojo. The second level of the Heaven's Chosen Dojo. The third level of the Heaven's Chosen Dojo. The fourth level of the Heaven's Chosen Dojo. With every additional level of the Heaven's Chosen Dojo, the number of people would decrease sharply. However, the area of the 9 prefectures was too huge, and there were too many cultivators participating in the Heaven's Chosen List battle. There were too many powerful cultivators. Therefore, even at the 4th level of the Heaven's Chosen battlefield, there were still many cultivators. Lin Feng had gained a lot during this period of time. He obtained a lot of treasures. After refining them, his cultivation level increased to the peak of the true God realm. After staying in the first 4 levels of the Heaven's Chosen battlefield for 3 months, Lin Feng entered the 5th level of the Heaven's Chosen battlefield. The 5th level of the Heaven's Chosen battlefield was also the most competitive one. It was said that there were 9 Heaven's Chosen peaks in the 5th level of the Heaven's Chosen battlefield. On the Heaven's Chosen peak, one could comprehend the aura of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Therefore, the 9 Heaven's Chosen peaks were coveted by countless powerful cultivators. After entering the 5th level of the Heaven's Chosen battlefield, many people began to search for the whereabouts of the Heaven's Chosen peak. Lin Feng was also very interested in the rumored Heaven's Chosen peak. He flew toward the depths of the 5th level of the Heaven's Chosen battlefield. He began to search for the whereabouts of the Heaven's Chosen peak. When passing by a mountain, Lin Feng saw more than 10 cultivators of the Yin-Yang sect flying by quickly. Moreover, these people looked hurried and did not know what had happened. The people of this sect are definitely up to no good when they gather together. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter. He followed behind the cultivators of the Yin Yang sect, intending to see what these people were up to. Chapter 2355. The Yin Yang sect was very powerful in the 9 prefectures. There were many top-notch geniuses in this evil sect. In addition, the Yin Yang sect cultivated all kinds of cultivation techniques and dual cultivation techniques. Therefore, their cultivation level rose very quickly. Lin Feng had interacted with the cultivators of the Yin Yang sect several times. He knew what kind of people they were. He followed the cultivators of the Yin Yang sect. Soon, they arrived at a mountain range. This mountain range was not simple. It was densely covered with powerful formations. These formations sealed off the entire mountain range. It was not an easy task to enter. One had to be proficient in formations and break through the formations in this place. Only then could one enter. "Are you sure it's here?" a green-robed cultivator asked. This green-robed cultivator's aura was deep and terrifying. The group of cultivators of the Yin Yang sect followed this green-robed cultivator as their leader. "I'm sure it's here," another cultivator said. "Excellent. Let's break the formation," the green-robed cultivator said. Immediately, 3 cultivators rushed out and began to break the formation. Lin Feng could not help but mutter, was there something special in this place? Why were the cultivators of the Yin Yang sect treating it so seriously? 2 hours later, the formation was broken. A group of people walked in. Lin Feng followed closely behind. The deeper they went, the colder the temperature became. When Lin Feng arrived at the deepest part of the mountain, he saw that it was covered in ice. There was an entrance on the mountain peak. A dozen or so cultivators of the Yin Yang sect quickly entered. The cold air is emitted from the cold wind. It seems that the inside of this mountain is not simple. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. He carefully followed behind the dozen or so Yin Yang Union sect cultivators and walked into the depths of the cave. As King Yu walked deeper, the colder it became. As they went deeper and deeper, Lin Feng felt like he was shivering. Why is this place so cold? Lin Feng could not help but frown. This place was even colder than the depths of the Arctic tundra. It was unbelievable. It's very likely that there's an ice attribute treasure or a holy item here, the Demon Lord said. Hearing the Demon Lord's words, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. If that was the case, then he could snatch this treasure or holy object. The cave was very long. After walking for a long time, Lin Feng finally reached the depths of the cave. In the deepest part of the cave, there was a huge belly of the mountain. In the belly of the mountain, there were stone tables, stone stools, some chefs, and a dressing table. This should be the cave residence of a woman. The cultivators from the Yin Yang Union sect checked the place, but didn't find anything valuable. There's a stone room inside. It's very likely that the treasure is inside the stone room, the cultivator from the Yin Yang Union sect said. Then, these people opened the door of the stone room. Lin Feng stood in the distance and looked into the stone room. He saw a white jade cold bed in the stone room. A woman was lying on the white jade cold bed. The woman was wearing a white palace gauze dress. Her figure was graceful, and she had a delicate and beautiful face. When Lin Feng saw the woman, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The woman was so beautiful that it took one's breath away. She was like a goddess of ice born in a world of ice and snow, beautiful and pure. There was a kind of beauty that made one's soul throb. So beautiful. Heavens, I've never seen such a beautiful woman. The cultivators from the Yin Yang Union sect exclaimed. There's no aura at all. She should have been dead for a long time, right? Such a beautiful woman is dead. What a pity. Yeah, what a pity. It would be great if I could get close to such a beautiful woman. The cultivators from the Yin-Yang Union sect talked among themselves. At this time, they looked at the woman lying on the bed with evil eyes. Who said we can't touch the dead? A cultivator from the Yin-Yang Union sect said gloomily. Then the others laughed. These people, they're really... When Lin Feng heard the cultivators of the Yin-Yang Fusion sect, he was speechless. These people, they were worse than beasts. Now, Lin Feng couldn't help but rush forward and kill this group of scum. At this time, the cultivators from the Yin-Yang Union sect pounced on the woman lying on the white jade bed, like hungry tigers pouncing on their prey. However, no one expected something terrible to happen. The woman, who had been dead for a long time without any aura, suddenly opened her eyes. It was a pair of cold and emotionless eyes. Looking into those eyes, one would feel like falling into a bottomless abyss of ice. Why is she alive? A cultivator from the Yin-Yang Union sect exclaimed. It's good that she's alive. The rest of the people burst into laughter. Then, they continued to pounce on the woman in white. The woman in white floated in the air and gently swept her jade-like hand through the air. Bang, bang, bang. One by one, the cultivators from the Yin-Yang Union sect were swept away. Their bodies exploded in the air, and their souls were destroyed on the spot. They died very miserably. They didn't even have the chance to become undead. Run! The leader of the green-robed cultivators shouted in horror and turned to flee. Previously, these people had even thought of beasts for the woman in white. But now, these people were almost scared out of their wits. The woman in white was simply too powerful and terrifying. The woman in white gently patted the air with her right hand. Bang, bang, bang. The green-robed cultivators and the others couldn't escape at all. Their bodies had already exploded. What a terrifying woman. Lin Feng couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This mysterious woman's cultivation was simply too strong. She killed without batting an eyelid. Lin Feng wanted to leave without anyone noticing. However, the woman in white looked at where Lin Feng was hiding and quickly chased after him. Oh no, I've been discovered. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. Without thinking, he turned and rushed outside. He quickly rushed out, but the woman in white chased after him. Lin Feng had indeed sensed that the woman in white had died. He didn't know why the woman in white had suddenly come back to life. It was simply too strange. Lin Feng didn't understand what was going on. The woman in white was very calm. There wasn't even any killing intent leaking out. However, Lin Feng didn't dare to slack off in the slightest. The woman in white was definitely chasing after him to take his life. Fairy, it's a misunderstanding between us. I have nothing to do with the people you killed. I also didn't want to violate your body. Lin Feng shouted, wanting to explain. However, the woman in white didn't listen at all. She flicked her finger. A terrifying killing intent condensed in the air and shot towards Lin Feng. The killing intent tore through the air and instantly arrived in front of Lin Feng, wanting to tear Lin Feng in half. Chapter 2356. The white-clothed woman's attack was extremely powerful. Lin Feng had no choice but to face it carefully. Therefore, in the face of the killing intent, Lin Feng did not hold back at all. He immediately took out the purple gold heavenly ball to protect himself. The purple gold heavenly ball was a quasi-emperor level defensive treasure. Its defensive power was extremely strong. When the white-clothed woman's attack landed on the defensive light barrier formed by the purple gold heavenly ball, his attack was immediately blocked. I'm a man. I don't fight with women. Lin Feng shouted loudly, then turned and ran. The white-clothed woman's face was still expressionless, even though she was very beautiful. Although she was very beautiful, her expression was too cold. It was so cold that it reached the bone. Lin Feng felt a chill run down his spine. Lin Feng's speed was fast enough. After 3 days, he finally got rid of the white-clothed woman. At this time, Lin Feng let out a long breath. This genius training hall is really strange. The white-clothed woman, who has been dead for God knows how many years, was actually able to come back to life. I wonder what happened to her. Did she really come back to life? Or did she turn into a corpse? Lin Feng could not help but mutter to himself. However, he was destined to not get any answers. After getting rid of the white-clothed woman, Lin Feng continued to head deeper into the training hall. He now planned to head to the Genius Peak and seize a peak to comprehend the Great Tao. Comprehending the Great Tao of heaven and earth was a kind of consolidation of one's cultivation. The Genius Peak was bustling with people coming and going. After arriving at the Genius Peak, many cultivators realized that the powerful restriction that enveloped the Genius Peak had yet to dissipate. They wanted to seize the Genius Peak. They had to wait for the restriction to dissipate before they could go and seize it. The rules for seizing the Genius Peak are very simple. If you think you're strong enough, you can go and guard the peak. Then, the other cultivators can challenge the cultivator guarding the peak. Only one person is allowed to challenge the cultivator guarding the peak at a time. If they lose, the other cultivators can continue to challenge them. A blue-clothed cultivator said. He was more familiar with the rules of the Genius Peak. Doesn't that mean the cultivator guarding the peak has to go through a tag team battle? Someone said, yeah, it's a tag team battle. It's extremely difficult to successfully defend the peak. If you don't have the courage, don't even think about trying to snatch the Genius Peak. The blue-clothed cultivator continued. But we can't keep fighting like this, can we? If there are constant challengers, how long will it take? Another person raised his doubts. Of course, it won't last forever. As long as the defending cultivators can hold on for 3 days without being defeated, they can successfully defend the mountain. The blue-clothed cultivator said. I see. Many people nodded after hearing the blue-robed cultivator's words. These cultivators now had a more direct understanding of the rules of heaven's Pride Peak. But soon after, many people became depressed. They had originally thought that heaven's Pride Peak could be entered as they pleased. But he didn't expect that. The Tianjiao Peak actually needed to be guarded. In other words, only 9 people could ascend Tianjiao Peak to cultivate. This disappointed many cultivators who had high hopes for the heaven's Pride Peak. There are so many experts here. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. He could sense many powerful auras, some of which made him feel extremely wary. Demonic blood. Lin Feng saw a young cultivator and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. The young cultivator was very handsome, but his long and narrow eyes made him look gloomy and cold. Lin Feng was too familiar with the aura of the demonic blood. He guessed that the demonic blood must have possessed that young cultivator. Possessing someone else's body was something that the demonic blood was good at. In addition, Lin Feng also saw some familiar faces, such as the white-clothed woman who was chasing after him. Mu Xianling, the great demonic god. The next day, a loud, rumbling sound resounded through heaven and earth. The restrictions that enveloped the 9 Genius Peaks began to disperse. This can be considered a rehearsal for the Genius Battle. That's right. Someone who dares to guard the peak is definitely someone who defies the natural order. If he can successfully guard the peak, he might be able to enter the top 10 of the Heaven's Pride list when he participates in the Heaven's Pride list battle. Many people began to discuss. For hours later, the seal that enveloped the 9 Heaven's Pride peaks completely dissipated. Swoosh, the white-clothed woman took the lead and soared into the sky, flying towards one of the Genius Peaks. That woman is so beautiful. She's as beautiful as a fairy. Who is she? How dare she guard a peak? I don't know her. There's no such person on the beauty chart, right? Seeing the white-clothed woman ascend the first genius peak, many male cultivators' eyes almost popped out. At that moment, a terrifying aura spread out from the northwest. Following that, a man stepped towards one of the genius peaks. It's the son of the heavenly demon emperor, many people exclaimed. The heavenly demon emperor's son had a powerful bloodline, and he also controlled the 8th-ranked heavenly flame. Although he hadn't been born for long, his reputation shook the heavens. Boom! The third expert stepped towards one of the genius peaks. This man was shrouded in divine light, looking like a supreme god from the absolute beginning era who had returned from a tribulation. That's a cultivator from the undying immortal sect. His name is Yuan Yu. I heard that he's related to the Undying Clan. Someone said. Many people's expressions suddenly changed. The Undying Clan. That was an ancient clan that made people pale at the mention of it. It had always existed in myths and legends. It was abnormally powerful and terrifying. Swoosh. Lin Feng also rushed out. He wanted to guard one of the genius peaks. He was confident that he could guard one of the genius peaks. Who's that kid? He doesn't look familiar. Is there such a person among the top geniuses? Many people looked at each other in dismay. They didn't know Lin Feng. Of course, not everyone didn't know Lin Feng. A cultivator who recognized Lin Feng said, "He's Lord Tortoise's disciple. His name is Lin Feng." So he's that Lin Feng. Many people had heard of Lin Feng's reputation. Xianxiang, is that your brother-in-law? He's so powerful. He's actually going to guard one of the peaks. Among the group of people from the Mu clan, a young master looked at his companion beside him. That companion was called Mu Xianxiang. He was Mu Xianshir's younger half-brother. I'm not sure. Mu Xianxiang was also somewhat surprised. He wasn't very close to Mu Xianshir, so he didn't know much about Lin Feng. Only someone as powerful as the heavenly demon emperor's son can defend the arena. Who does he think he is? Lord Tortoise's disciple's reputation is resounding, but it doesn't bring him great strength. Just wait and see. He'll be crushed to death, on the genius peak like an ant. Mu Xianling sneered as she looked at Lin Feng with a mocking gaze. Chapter 2357. After hearing Mu Xianling's words, many members of the Mu clan stopped talking about Lin Feng. Naturally, they knew about the relationship between Mu Xianling and Lin Feng. The more they said, the more mistakes they would make. Mu Xianling had an extraordinary status in the clan, so they did not want to offend her. Mu Xianxiang frowned slightly. He was not close to Lin Feng. But no matter what, Lin Feng was the fiancé of his half-sister, Mu Xianshir. If they were to get married in the future, when the time came, he would have to call Lin Feng brother-in-law. Therefore, Mu Xianxiang was unhappy when he heard Mu Xianling belittling Lin Feng. He said, "Sister Xianling, it's not right to talk about Lin Feng behind his back. After all, the relationship between you and Lin Feng is a thing of the past. Sister Xianling, there's no need to take it to heart." Mu Xianling's face darkened. She said coldly, "What? He hasn't even married your sister yet, and you're already protecting her?" Mu Xianxiang's face darkened. He was not from the same lineage as Mu Xianling. However, he was from the main lineage, so he was not afraid of Mu Xianling. Mu Xianxiang wanted to say something, but he was stopped by his companions. Mu Xianxiang snorted and stopped arguing with Mu Xianling. Its senior brother Lin, the disciples of the reincarnation immortal sect, exclaimed when they saw Lin Feng climb up the heavens' pride peak. Lin Feng was known as the scum of the sect. However, Lin Feng's strength was well known in the sect. Many people respected Lin Feng's strength. Some female disciples even thought that Lin Feng had a righteous heart under his frivolous appearance. Perhaps Chu Yashuan thought so as well, so she wanted to get to know Lin Feng. She wanted to know what kind of person Lin Feng was. However, Lin Feng did not give her the chance to do so. Good luck, senior brother Lin. Chu Yashuan couldn't help but cheer for Lin Feng when she saw Lin Feng climb at Tianjiao Peak. She was a very kind person. She didn't reject her because of Lin Feng. He hated Lin Feng out of jealousy. Chu Yashuan, on the other hand, was silently observing Lin Feng. Lin Feng was the fourth person to ascend Prodigy Peak. There were still 5 genius peaks left. At this time, the great demonic god also soared into the sky and walked towards one of the heaven's pride peaks. It's the great demonic god, a cultivator of the demonic god clan. He broke out of the stone a few years ago. His origins are extremely mysterious. Someone pointed out the great demonic god's identity. The great demonic god was full of secrets. After the great demonic god ascended the 5th heaven's pride peak. Then Gongziyu appeared, the son of the sky demon emperor, Gongziyu. It is said that this person possesses the magic lotus. Someone recognized Gongziyu's identity. Gongziyu's father was a great emperor-level expert. Moreover, he was a living great emperor. Now, he controlled the sky demon clan. Gongziyu's talent was also abnormally terrifying. He had the blood of a first-generation great emperor flowing in his body. Even Lin Feng didn't know how strong his cultivation was. Gongziyu's appearance naturally caused quite a stir. In the end, Gongziyu landed on the 6th heaven's pride peak. There are only 3 heaven's pride peaks left. Many people whispered, looking forward to who would ascend the last 3 heavens pride peaks. At this time, a black-clothed youth who looked to be only 13 or 14 years old ascended the 7th heaven's pride peak. No, she's not a man, she's a woman. Someone said. They realized that the youth was a woman dressed as a man. She's from the blood-stained demon tribe, and it's said that she's the daughter of a great emperor. Previously, this girl had a conflict with the Daosaur sect, and 2 giant god powerhouses from the Daosaur sect led thousands of experts to besiege her, but they were easily killed by her. Someone said, so she's the legendary demoness. Many people couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. They had heard about this demoness before. However, they hadn't had the chance to meet her. Now that they had finally met her, they realized that the rumors were true, and this demoness was indeed very young. Although she was young, her cultivation was extremely heaven-defying. I came from the 9 heavens, and I am the ruler of millions of realms. All living beings bow their heads, and I am the ruler of heaven and earth. At this time, a fleeting voice came from afar. It was a simple sentence. However, it contained an endless domineering aura. The Qing Emperor walked over from afar. Between all the realms, I, the Qing Emperor, am the ruler. Anyone who refuses to accept this can come and fight me. The Qing Emperor was extremely arrogant as he ascended the 8th genius peak and glanced at the countless cultivators around him. His expression was arrogant and insufferably arrogant. When they saw the Qing Emperor's appearance, many people had the urge to rush up and punch the Qing Emperor. This guy was too arrogant. Did he really think that he was the Qing Emperor from history? He actually dared to say that I, the Qing Emperor, am the ruler of all the realms? Who is this guy? He actually dares to refer to himself as the Qing Emperor. Isn't this a taboo? Someone said. They didn't recognize the Qing Emperor in front of them, but they knew that the Qing Emperor from history had been invincible. This person is a saint fetus. After he was born, he called himself the Qing Emperor. Someone said, he's really audacious. Is the title Qing Emperor something that can be casually used? Someone said coldly, but he's still living a carefree life. This person is extremely terrifying. Someone said. Swoosh, the ninth cultivator soared into the sky and flew toward the ninth genius peak. This cultivator was none other than the Qing Emperor. It was the cultivator possessed by the demonic blood. Isn't that kidly gone? He's a seventh heavenly layer, heavenly god. He can be considered an expert, but he's still far from being able to defend the peak. Isn't he just going to throw his life away? Someone recognized the cultivator possessed by the demonic blood and couldn't help but feel puzzled. Naturally, this cultivator didn't know that the demonic blood possessed Li Gan. If he did, he wouldn't have been so puzzled. The woman in white, the son of the heavenly demon emperor, Yuan Yu, Lin Feng, the great demon god, Gongzi Yu, the witch, the Qing emperor, the demonic blood. The 9 of them each occupied a genius peak. There were still many peak experts who didn't occupy the genius peaks. Among these peak experts, some didn't have much interest in the genius peaks. Some didn't want to expose their strength before the genius ranking battle at the top of the genius pagoda. Others planned to wait until the other cultivators exhausted most of their strength before finding an opportunity to attack and defeat the defending cultivators in one fell swoop. The challenge has officially begun. Suddenly, a deep voice resounded through the world. It was the voice of the Yuanshu realm's heavenly Tao. As the voice rang out, one figure after another soared into the sky and flew toward the 9 genius peaks. Chapter 2358. A cultivator descended from the sky. This was Lin Feng's opponent. She was a woman wearing a long red dress, revealing her charming figure in front of Lin Feng. She was so perfect and beautiful. She was born with a delicate face that could be broken by the wind. It could be said that she was extremely moving. A woman like her, even in the entire 9 continents, could be considered a peerless beauty. Su Rujiao. This woman seems to be from the ancient sect, right? Someone said, recognizing the woman's identity. The ancient sect. It was a sect with an incomparably long history. This was a hidden sect, and not many people knew about it. However, any cultivator who had some understanding of the ancient sect would know how terrifying the ancient sect was. Even the powerful ancient immortal sects would not easily provoke this sect. The cultivators of the ancient sect rarely came out, but those who were qualified to come out were extremely stunning. Su Rujiao made her move. Without saying much, she used the top inheritance of the ancient sect. Dense chains appeared in the void, and those chains completely sealed Lin Feng's surroundings. Su Rujiao wanted to use these chains to bind Lin Feng. In this way, she could restrict Lin Feng's movements. At that time, she could easily deal with Lin Feng. Lin Feng waved his hand and slashed out billions of sword chi. Puff! The sword chi shot out horizontally. The chains that Su Rujiao condensed were all shattered. Lin Feng stepped towards Su Rujiao and punched at her. Humph! Su Rujiao snorted softly, and her jade-like hands kept changing seals. Roar! The roar shook the sky, and a ferocious beast condensed. This ferocious beast turned out to be a Swanee. The Swanee was the son of the true dragon. Its ferocious power shook the sky. As the saying went, the dragon gave birth to 9 sons. The 9 sons were different. Among the 9 sons of the true dragon great emperor, the Swanee was ranked 7th. This divine ability was called the Swanee seal. Rumor had it that it was an ultimate technique passed down by an extremely powerful Swanee saint. What a powerful divine ability. Many people felt Su Rujiao's divine ability and couldn't help but change their expressions. This divine ability could be said to be earth-shattering. Rumor has it that Swanee's cultivation base has reached the immortal realm. He is the son of the 5th true dragon emperor. His strength is not lower than my father's, so you can imagine how terrifying his inheritance is. Someone said, revealing the power of the swan and eye seal. This was one of the top inheritances of the ancient sect, and it had definitely reached the level of an immortal art. Like I said, Lin Feng is just a piece of trash. A piece of trash, like him, wants to guard the peak. Isn't he courting death? Said Mu Xianling while smiling coldly. She then looked at Lin Feng coldly. She had been paying attention to Lin Feng. Mu Xianling naturally hoped that Lin Feng would be defeated. This was the only way to prove that she had made the right choice. She wanted to marry one of the top geniuses, such as the son of the Sky Demon Emperor. He was destined to amaze the ages. But Lin Feng, obviously, he was not qualified. Mu Xianxiong frowned slightly, but he did not say anything. His gaze was fixed on the heaven's proud peak, where Lin Feng was. He did not know much about Lin Feng, so he did not know what his cultivation base was like. Could he withstand Su Rujiao's attack? Many people looked at the heaven's proud peak, where Lin Feng was. Many people were muttering, would Lin Feng be beaten half to death by Su Rujiao's swan and eye seal? True dragon seal. At that moment, Lin Feng made his move. He used the true dragon seal passed down by the first-generation ancestral dragon. Swan and I was only the son of the true dragon emperor. Moreover, he was only the son of the fifth true dragon emperor. Although the divine ability he created was powerful, his bloodline was suppressed by the true dragon bloodline. The divine ability he created would also be suppressed by the divine ability created by the true dragon emperor. This was a natural suppression of the bloodline. It could not be changed. Therefore, when Lin Feng used the true dragon seal, it directly suppressed Su Rujiao's swan and eye seal. Bang! 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 After 3 consecutive collisions, Su Rujiao's swan and eye seal was broken by Lin Feng's true dragon seal. Su Rujiao was even forced to retreat. She only stopped after taking more than 10 steps back. Su Rujiao was defeated. It seems that Lin Feng is quite capable. I didn't expect Lin Feng to be so powerful. Many people could not help but be surprised. Many people's understanding of Lin Feng came from Lord Tortoise. They also knew that Lin Feng's cultivation base was not weak. However, when Lin Feng was mentioned, many people's first impression was that he was Lord Tortoise's disciple. They did not simply think that he was a top genius. Su Rujiao's pretty face was uncertain. She took a deep look at Lin Feng, bit her red lips, and flew away from the heaven's proud peak, where Lin Feng was. At this moment, the battles on the other 8 heaven's proud peaks were also very intense. Those who dared to take the lead and challenge others were naturally very strong. However, the combat prowess of the cultivators guarding the mountain was simply too strong. Therefore, everyone succeeded in defeating their challengers. That woman in white's cultivation base is really strong, but I've never seen the divine abilities she used before. I wonder where they came from. What's up with that Li Gan? The one who had challenged him was a top-notch genius who could compete with the giant god. Yet, Li Gan had easily defeated such a powerful figure. When had Li Gan become so powerful? It's as if he's a completely different person. Has he been pretending to be weak all this time? That Gongzi Yu's methods are also very strange, as expected of the son of the celestial demon emperor. Among these people, the most unfathomable should be the Qing emperor, the son of the celestial demon emperor, and the great demon god, right? No, I actually think that the woman in white and that cultivator called Li Gan are the most mysterious. I think the Qing emperor, the son of the celestial demon emperor, and Yuan Yu, I heard that Yuan Yu is related to that ancient clan and has already undergone a bloodline awakening. No one knows how strong she is. Many people discussed animatedly, expressing their own opinions. Soon, More cultivators went to challenge Li Gan. Lin Feng defeated more than 10 challengers in a row. At this moment, a tall man who looked like a god of war walked towards Lin Feng. Dragon Fire Provinces, Long Clan's number one among the younger generation, Long Want Song. A cultivator said. He was also a powerful figure with an unfathomable cultivation base. He was one of the top figures in Dragonfire Province. Lin Feng had an old grudge with Dragonfire Province's Long Clan. Now that Long Want Song had appeared, he wanted to kill Lin Feng the moment he saw him. Have you thought about how you want to die? Long Want Song descended from the sky and looked coldly at Lin Feng. He didn't hide the killing intent in his eyes at all. Lin Feng said indifferently, "A piece of trash like you dares to be so presumptuous in front of me? Who gave you the courage? If you want to live, kneel down and kowtow 10 times. Lin Feng's words caused an uproar. Chapter 2359. No matter what, Long Want Song was the strongest genius in the Dragonfire Prefecture. Even in the 9 prefectures, he was a famous genius. Many people were surprised by Lin Feng's disdain for Long Want Song. Isn't this guy too arrogant? He's looking down on Long Want Song. Isn't he looking down on Long Want Song? This is the first time I've seen such an arrogant guy. Long Want Song is a prideful person. Now that he's being looked down on, I wonder how angry he'll be. This is going to be interesting. Long Want Song isn't someone who'll swallow his anger. This battle is unavoidable. It'll definitely be exciting." Instantly, many people began to discuss among themselves. Everyone was waiting for the exciting battle to begin. The disciples of the Reincarnation Immortal sect smiled bitterly. It seemed like Senior Brother Lin's personality would not change no matter where he went. However, they felt that it was natural for Lin Feng to be so arrogant. After all, Lin Feng was strong enough. When one was strong enough, so what if one was arrogant? What could they do to him? In the eyes of the disciples of the Reincarnation Immortal sect, Lin Feng was the leader of the Reincarnation Immortal sect in the Prodigy ranking battle. Besides, Lin Feng had the strength to look down on outstanding heroes. So, what if he was a bit arrogant? How dare he provoke Long Want Song? He must be tired of living. Mu Xianling sneered as she looked at Lin Feng. She was waiting for Lin Feng to be killed by Long Want Song. Mu Xianxiong frowned slightly. He had not expected Lin Feng to anger Long Want Song to such an extent. Mu Xianxiong had fought with Long Want Song before. Back then, he had fought with Long Want Song for the sake of obtaining a treasure. In the end, he had been defeated by Long Want Song. Many years had passed since then. Long Want Song's cultivation must have become even more terrifying. This was because he knew how terrifying Long Want Song was. That was why Mu Xianxiong knew that the battle between Lin Feng and Long Want Song would be extremely dangerous. Anyone who dares to be arrogant in front of me will be crushed to death by me like a bug. You are no exception. Long Want Song grinned as he looked at Lin Feng. Boom! A terrifying aura emanated from his body. Immediately after, Long Want Song attacked Lin Feng. He sent a punch towards Lin Feng. Above his fist, there was actually a phantom of the primordial divine dragon. This fist was called the Dragon God Fist. One punch was enough to shatter space. The power behind it was so great that many of the spectating cultivators felt their hearts trembling. As the pinnacle prodigy of the Dragonfire state, the strength that Long Want Song displayed was indeed shocking. Lin Feng waved his hand, and a river of death flew out. The grim Reaper descends, exterminating billions of lives. The souls of the dead fall, reaping countless lives. Mysterious voices could be heard coming from the river of death. Those were the voices of the crowd. It sounded like the voice of the god of death. One by one, the grim reapers were formed. Wielding scythes in their hands, they walked on top of the River of Death. This was the River of Death formed by the Great Death Skill. Ever since Lin Feng had entered the underworld, he seemed to have gained a whole new understanding of death in that world where only the dead would go. Therefore, even the Great Death Skill that he had cultivated had improved by leaps and bounds. Compared to the past, it had undergone a tremendous change. Instantly, the River of Death drowned Long Wansong within. Long Wansong's mystic skill was broken by the River of Death. I have come from the underworld to reap the souls of all living beings. One by one, the Grim Reapers pounced towards Long Wansong. Stop acting all mysterious. Break it. Long Wansong hollered out coldly. He then sent out a punch towards the Grim Reapers. Bam, 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 bam. The Grim Reapers formed by the River of Death were extremely strong. Although Long Wansong's attack was strong, it was not easy for him to break Lin Feng's River of Death. Long Wansong seems to have met with some trouble. Lin Feng really hid his strength well. Being able to suppress Long Wansong is enough to show how terrifying Lin Feng is. Every generation produces a new generation of talents. Each generation will lead the world for hundreds of years. Peerless geniuses are born one after another. Many people were whispering to each other. Lin Feng's strength had astonished them. Senior Brother Lin is really powerful. The disciples of the Reincarnation Immortal Sect were excited. Glory and glory were bound together. As a disciple of the Reincarnation Immortal Sect, Lin Feng's strength made them feel proud. Xianxiong, your brother-in-law is really terrifying. He's different from the rumors. It seems like everyone has underestimated his strength. A cultivator from the Mu clan said. Mu Xianxiong nodded and said, to be able to suppress Long Wansong. He's really strong. Mu Xianling's face was ugly. Previously, she had strongly opposed the marriage with Lin Feng because she felt that Lin Feng's cultivation was not strong enough and his talent was not enough. But now that Lin Feng had displayed such strong combat strength, it naturally made her feel uncomfortable. But then again, so what if Lin Feng's cultivation was not bad? Compared to the son of the heavenly demon emperor, the Qing emperor, and the great demon god, there was still a huge gap. Thinking of this, Mu Xianling's face became much better. After suppressing Long Wansong, Lin Feng did not stop and walked towards Long Wansong. Lin Feng naturally understood the principle of beating a drowning dog. Long Wansong wanted to kill him. Lin Feng naturally would not be courteous with Long Wansong. Lin Feng appeared behind Long Wansong without making a sound. Then he displayed his self-created fist technique, Supreme Reincarnation Fist. This fist technique was extremely powerful. It was a fist technique that Lin Feng had painstakingly created. The moment the Supreme Reincarnation Fist was displayed, Lin Feng's body exuded an aura as though he was the sovereign of heaven and earth. All the gods and immortals bowed down to him. This fist was a fist that could only belong to me. Long Wansong had just repelled the death god who had attacked him. Then he felt the terrifying fist intent behind him. He turned around and threw a punch. Bang! Long Wansong and Lin Feng clashed. Then Long Wansong's body was sent flying by Lin Feng. Wah! Long Wansong vomited blood in midair and his face was as white as paper. Crack, crack! Lin Feng's fist collided with Lin Feng's arm and broke it. Long Wansong was severely injured from this attack. Who would have thought that Lin Feng had just exchanged blows with Long Wansong, and that Lin Feng would be able to injure Long Wansong so severely? This was something that no one would have expected. Boom! Lin Feng was like an ancient god of war as he leaped towards Long Wansong. He wanted to kill Long Wansong at the peak of heaven's Pride Peak. Chapter 2360. Lin Feng's domineering attack brought with it a destructive force that could destroy everything as it flew towards Long Wansong. Many people could feel the terror of Lin Feng's attack and could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This attack was simply too powerful. If Long Wansong took this attack, his soul would probably return to the 9 heavens. Is Long Wansong going to be killed? Many people exclaimed. No matter what, Long Wansong was still a famous top expert. If he was killed by Lin Feng, just like that, it would naturally cause a huge commotion. Roar. Just as Lin Feng's attack was about to kill Long Wansong, suddenly a loud dragon roar reverberated through the heavens. Next, Long Wansong's body turned into a huge dragon's body. Long Wansong's bloodline could revert to its ancestor. Facing Lin Feng's terrifying attack, Long Wansong directly awakened his ancestor's bloodline. After reverting to his ancestor, Long Wansong turned into a huge dragon, and his combat strength increased tremendously. He waved his dragon claws and clashed with Lin Feng's attack, blocking Lin Feng's attack. Then, he swept his dragon tail towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng moved to the side and dodged Long Wansong's attack. I'll take your life. Long Wansong's roar shook the heavens as he pounced towards Lin Feng. He opened his bloody mouth. A huge ball of energy formed and shot towards Lin Feng. Humph, it's useless. Even if you revert to your ancestor, you're still unable to withstand a single blow from me. Lin Feng sneered as he executed the stoneman watching the Sea of Clouds, a powerful mystique that attacked the huge dragon that Long Wansong had transformed into. Stoneman watching the Sea of Clouds. Everything could be destroyed. In the blink of an eye, the heavens and the universe collapsed. The stoneman watching the Sea of Clouds formed and descended from the heavens, suppressing the attack. Bang! This attack directly shattered Long Wansong's attack and ruthlessly slammed into Long Wansong's dragon body, causing it to fly out. Long Wansong's gigantic dragon body split open as fresh blood flowed out. Whoosh! With a flash of light, Lin Feng turned into a dazzling sword chi and slashed towards Long Wansong. Puff! With a loud tearing sound, Long Wansong's giant dragon body was torn into 2. Heavens! Long Wansong was beheaded. Countless people exclaimed. Long Wansong was also a top expert, but he was killed by Lin Feng so easily. This was out of everyone's expectations. Long Wansong's dragon body turned into a human body. Lin Feng took out a heavenly flame and burned Long Wansong's body into ashes. Then, he kept Long Wansong's storage ring. Long Wansong, such a talented person, turned into dust just like that. He's become a thing of the past. This is the cruelty of the world of cultivators. There are so many amazing people who can shine for a while, but when they die, they're destined to be forgotten. There's no lack of geniuses in the world. The dead won't be forgotten. Only the living will be worshipped. Countless people were discussing, but it was still difficult to calm down. The one who died was a top genius. Even the cultivators fighting on the other 8 peaks couldn't help but look over. The heavenly demon emperor's son looked at Lin Feng with a cold smile. The white-robed woman was expressionless. The great demonic god looked fervent. Li Gan, who was possessed by the demonic blood, was filled with killing intent. Gongzi looked at Lin Feng with a playful expression. Everybody looked at Lin Feng in a different way. Lin Feng didn't care about other people's gazes. He stood at the top of the Tianjiao Peak. The wind whistled, causing his clothes to flutter. Lin Feng was like an immortal god. His eyes were ice cold as he glanced around. This person was just a little famous before. I didn't think that he would become so strong. He'll definitely have a place in the Tianjiao ranking battle. Many people were astonished. Lin Feng's battle prowess was too terrifying. It had deeply touched everyone's hearts. Mu Xianling couldn't help but clench her fists tightly. Just now, she had hoped that Lin Feng would be killed by Long Wansam. But things didn't go as she wished. She didn't want to admit that she had made a wrong choice. But now, Mu Xianling felt more and more that she had made a wrong choice. But now, she and Lin Feng were like strangers. When they met again, they were worse than strangers. The battles on the other Tianjiao peaks were also ongoing. The cultivators guarding the peaks were too terrifying. Wanting to defeat them was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Lin Feng, do you know that you've committed a capital offense? A cold voice came from afar. Then a man with a sword on his back walked over step by step. He was a man in snow-white clothes. His black hair draped over his shoulders. He looked like a sword immortal. He was like an immortal. He had an otherworldly aura. It was as if he had descended from the 9 heavens. The little sword saint, Sun Xianao. Many people exclaimed when they saw this person. What? He's the little sword saint, Sun Xianao of the Taishang immortal sect. Many people shouted in shock. The little sword saint, Sun Xianao, was one of the top geniuses of the Taishang immortal sect's new generation. He was 700 or 800 years younger than Dugu Di Tian, Wu Qianquan, and the others. This year, Sun Xianao had only cultivated for 360 years. 160 years was 60 years, and 360 years was 180 years. It was rumored that Sun Xianao was one of the leaders of the new batch of disciples of the Supreme Immortal Sect. The previous batch of disciples that participated in the Prodigy ranking battle 800 years ago were led by Wu Qianquan, Dugadi Tian, and the others. 100 years ago, Sun Xianao had challenged the sword god of the Eastern Sea, Xue Zhiqian. The two of them fought for 1,600 rounds. Sun Xianao defeated Xue Zhiqian. Furthermore, he had personally beheaded Xue Zhiqian. Then, he used Xue Zhiqian's blood as a sacrifice to his sword. 100 years had passed, and no one knew how powerful Sun Xianao's swordsmanship had become. Who are you? Tell me your name, and your hands will not be stained with the blood of nameless people. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. Many people became excited. These two were both extremely terrifying existences, and now they were going to clash. It seemed that in this battle, it was already inevitable. Sun Xianao was much stronger than Long Wansam, who had been killed by Lin Feng. This battle was bound to be incomparably fierce. I heard that you are arrogant. Today, I see that you are indeed worthy of your reputation. However, those arrogant people in front of me were all sacrificed to my sword in the end. Sun Xianao walked step by step towards Lin Feng. With every step he took, ripples would appear in the void. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent as he said, "Arrogant, that is because you have the qualifications to be arrogant. Today, I want to see who will be the victor between you and me." 10,000 swords splitting divine Tao. Sun Xianao sneered as his right foot lightly stepped on the void. An incredible amount of sword qi condensed and moved straight towards Lin Feng. Chapter 2361. Sun Xianao's strength was tyrannical, and his sword arts were heaven-defying. With just a thought, billions of sword qi could split the sky. The battle prowess displayed by Sun Xianao was naturally enough to shock everyone. The sword qi rampaged between heaven and earth, wanting to cut Lin Feng into pieces. As expected of an expert in the sword Tao, even a casual attack is so terrifying. Lin Feng could not help but narrow his eyes. In the face of Sun Xianao's attack, he continuously changed his hand seals. He used the great defensive technique. A defensive crystal wall formed around Lin Feng. Clang, 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 The dense sword qi slashed on the defensive light barrier. A series of clanging sounds could be heard. The sword qi slashed on the defensive crystal wall formed by the great defensive technique, but they were unable to break through the defensive crystal wall. All the attacks, they were all blocked by the defensive crystal wall. These two can be said to be a fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger. I just don't know who will have the last laugh. Many people whispered. This battle could be said to be a highly anticipated battle and attracted the attention of too many people. The disciples of the reincarnation immortal sect could not help but worry for Lin Feng. The little sword saint's name was too well known. The little sword saint's strength was too strong. There would never be a lack of experts in this world. When one felt that they were invincible, perhaps an even stronger and more terrifying existence would appear. That kid is dead for sure. He will definitely be killed by junior brother Li. The disciples of the Taishang immortal sect sneered. They were very confident in Sun Xianao's strength. They believed that Lin Feng would definitely die in Sun Xianao's hands. I think Lin Feng is doomed in this battle. The inheritance of the reincarnation immortal sect is not as good as the inheritance of the Taishang immortal sect. Yes, I also think that Sun Xianao will be able to defeat Lin Feng in this battle. Moreover, Sun Xianao has cultivated for many more years than Lin Feng. I think that Lin Feng, as Lord Tortoise's disciple, must have extremely powerful means. So, I think that Lin Feng will win this battle. Many cultivators were discussing their views on this battle. 70 to 80% of them thought that Sun Xianao would be able to kill Lin Feng. A small number of people were optimistic that Lin Feng would be able to win this battle. Sun Xianao is much stronger than Lin Feng. Lin Feng will definitely die in Sun Xianao's hands. Mu Xianling's lips curled into a smile. She looked at Lin Feng as though she was looking at a dead man. Sword Emperor slash. After Sun Xianao's first attack was blocked by Lin Feng, he immediately used his second attack. He shouted in a low voice. Then, he gently waved his right hand in the air. Swish! Sword Qi rampaged. Billions of strands of sword Qi were condensed. All of the sword Qi gathered together to form a Sword Emperor. The Sword Emperor wore the sun, moon, and stars robe, the heaven and earth-flowing cloud boots, and the 9 mysteries royal crown on his head. It was as if the ancient Saint Emperor of the absolute beginning era had traveled through the torrent of time to come to this era. Sword Saint Emperor, break all Tao. Suddenly, the Sword Emperor spoke. The next moment, the Sword Emperor turned into a strand of sword Qi. Then, that strand of sword Qi directly slashed towards Lin Feng. That dazzling sword Qi first collided with Lin Feng's defensive crystal wall. Pooh! A ripping sound could be heard. The defensive crystal wall, formed by the great defensive technique, was directly torn apart by the sword Qi. Lin Feng quickly retreated and then waved his right hand. He slashed out a sword Qi. This was the sword Qi condensed by the Sky Splitter, and it was infused with the power of sword concept. Clang! The sword Qi and sword Qi collided, and a clanging sound could be heard. Then, the sword Qi condensed by Lin Feng was shattered by the sword Qi condensed by Sun Xianao. The might of Sun Xianao's Sword Emperor slash was really too strong. Lin Feng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. The sword Qi, condensed by the Sword Emperor slash, was really strange. After breaking the sword Qi condensed by Lin Feng, the sword Qi slashed towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng twisted and turned in midair, trying to dodge the Sword Emperor slash. The sword Qi actually followed him like a shadow. It was as if it had its own spirituality. The sword Qi has its own spirituality. This Sun Xianao is really too strong. He has actually cultivated the sword Tao to such a profound level. Lin Feng is being suppressed. I think it's only a matter of time before he loses. Many cultivators said aloud. In a battle between experts, one would usually gain the upper hand by a show of strength, being suppressed from the beginning, wanting to turn the tables. It was really difficult. I have imbued the Sword Emperor's spirit into the Sword Chi. The Sword Emperor's spirit is immortal and indestructible. If I don't kill you, the Sword Chi will never dissipate. Sun Xianao sneered. Great emperors and immortals don't even dare to say the words immortal and indestructible. Yet you dare to say that a mere Sword Emperor's spirit is immortal and indestructible? I really don't know if I should say that you are ignorant or stupid. Lin Feng sneered. He took a step forward, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Today, I will destroy your Sword Chi and let you know how powerful I am. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng raised his hands in midair, and then he kept chanting an incantation. It was unknown what kind of incantation it was. As the incantation was finished, in the void, an illusory world was condensed. In that illusory world, there was an endless river. In the river, a black tortoise was swimming over with a wordless heavenly steel. That black tortoise was a black tortoise made of stone. The black tortoise steel diagram. This was a top-tier divine ability that Lin Feng had mastered. Lin Feng did not know what grade this divine ability was, but it was extremely powerful. Lin Feng took out the black tortoise steel drawing. Next, the black tortoise steel drawing slashed towards the Sword Chi. Break. Sun Aoxian's voice was cold. She channeled all her Sword Chi to destroy Lin Feng's black tortoise steel drawing. Clang, 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 strike after strike landed on the black tortoise steel drawing. However, she could not destroy the black tortoise steel that Lin Feng had condensed. But the black tortoise steel drawing vibrated with a terrifying power. Then it slammed towards the Sword Chi that Sun Aoxian had condensed. Crack! The power of the black tortoise steel drawing was simply too strong. Even though the Sword Chi that Sun Aoxian had condensed from the Sword Emperor's slash was powerful, it began to shatter under the attacks of the black tortoise steel drawing. Bam! Finally, that terrifyingly powerful Sword Chi exploded. Lin Feng controlled the black tortoise steel drawing and slammed it towards Sun Aoxian. Sun Aoxian's expression changed drastically. She had not expected that Lin Feng's attack would be so powerful. The black tortoise steel drawing descended from the sky and slammed into Sun Aoxian. Sun Aoxian was sent flying. The black tortoise steel drawing flew over quickly and slammed towards Sun Aoxian once again. It wanted to kill Sun Aoxian. Chapter 2362. This sudden change caught everyone off guard. Just a moment ago, countless cultivators were still discussing the possible outcome of this battle, because in many people's opinion, Lin Feng would definitely lose this battle and be killed by Sun Xianao. But who would have thought that so many things would happen in the blink of an eye? The result was too unexpected. The battle situation changed in an instant. Now, Lin Feng had obtained an overwhelming advantage. Sun Xianao's situation was in imminent danger. The power of the black tortoise hunchback tablet was so strong that it seemed to be able to suppress all living things. This time, its power. It was even stronger than the last time. Sun Xianao's expression was extremely gloomy. Ever since he started cultivating, he had never suffered a single loss. Even when he fought against Sword God Xue Zhiqian 100 years ago, even though the battle was bitter and long, he had always held the advantage. But now, Sun Xianao suffered a moderate loss at the hands of Lin Feng. This was hard for Sun Xianao to accept. Sun Xianao's eyes were filled with dense killing intent. Facing the attack of the black tortoise hunchback tablet, He didn't choose to meet force with force this time. Swish, 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 light flickered in the air. Sun Xianaos appeared one after another. A total of 99 Sun Xianaos appeared. These Sun Xianaos were floating everywhere. Lin Feng's black tortoise hunchback tablet killed a few Sun Xianaos, but those Sun Xianaos weren't real. The black tortoise hunchback tablet consumed a lot of the body, so Lin Feng couldn't use it all the time. Seeing Sun Xianao create so many illusory clones, Lin Feng dispersed the black tortoise hunchback tablet. One clone turned into 99 clones. This divine ability is so strange. Yeah, I can't tell which one is real. This time, Lin Feng is in trouble. It won't be easy to break such a strange divine ability. Many people furrowed their brows. Sun Xianao's divine ability was indeed a bit too strange. Lin Feng, you do have some skills, but so what? Your final fate is to die at my hands. The 99 Sun Xianaos looked at Lin Feng at the same time. Every Sun Xianao's eyes were emitting cold-killing intent. Sword Dao Immortal Slaying. Suddenly, the 99 Sun Aoxin clones spoke coldly at the same time. The 99 Sun Aoxin clones unleashed a powerful divine ability together. Whoosh! Each of the Sun Aoxin clones unleashed a blast of sword qi. There were a total of 99 streaks of sword qi. The 99 sword qis fused together to form a dazzling sword qi. That sword qi. He charged towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng frowned slightly. He felt that this sacred art was somewhat similar to the sacred art from before. However, Lin Feng soon discovered that this divine ability was many times stronger than the previous one. When the sword qi was about to slash at him, suddenly, the streaks of sword qi separated again. They then turned into 99 beams of sword qi. Moreover, each of the sword energy contained a powerful willpower that could shatter the heavenly Tao and kill the group of immortals. That powerful willpower, it made Lin Feng's hair stand on end. This divine ability was unpredictable and very powerful. Sword Dao Immortal Slaying is a divine ability that Junior Brother Sun obtained from an ancient secret realm. It's said to be a supreme technique created by a powerful innate life form from the primordial era. Once this technique is used, it can kill gods and demons, slay immortals and Buddhas. Its power is unimaginable. Now that Junior Brother Sun is using this divine ability, it seems that he's starting to take this battle seriously. A disciple of the Taishang Immortal Sect said, Junior Brother Sun is right. If he's taking this battle seriously, then that kid will die. That's right. Let's wait and see how Junior Brother Sun kills that kid. The disciples of the Taishang Immortal Sect said, Sword Dao Immortal Slaying is actually this powerful sword technique. Rumor has it that Sun Aoxin used this sword technique to defeat sword god Sun Xianao. Now, that Sun Aoxin is using the same technique again. I wonder if he can defeat Lin Feng with this divine ability. A cultivator who knew about the battle between Sun Aoxin and Xue Zhiqian said. His words caused quite a commotion. This sword technique was able to defeat sword god Xue Zhiqian back then. It was obvious how terrifying it was. Perhaps Lin Feng really could be killed by this powerful sword technique. At this moment, the 99 sword qi from the Sword Dao execution celestial sword technique had completely locked onto Lin Feng. Lin Feng had nowhere to run. Then it went straight for Lin Feng. It slashed forward. Chapter 2363. Lin Feng won't be able to dodge it now. He's going to die, for sure. That's right. I think Lin Feng won't be able to escape either. Many cultivators cried out in alarm when they saw the sword qi heading toward Lin Feng, completely sealing off all of Lin Feng's escape routes. In their eyes, Lin Feng was probably powerless to turn the tables. Lin Feng was also slightly surprised. The strength that Sun Aoxian had displayed had shocked him. He did not expect Sun Aoxian to be so powerful. This sword technique had indeed sealed off all escape routes. It was simply impossible to resist. Anyone who was sealed off by such a terrifying sword technique would probably die in the end. But this time, Sun Aoxian's opponent was Lin Feng. Lin Feng had endless means. He had already thought of a way to deal with this superpower. When the sword chi was heading toward him, Lin Feng performed the 3,000 Great Ways. This 3,000 Great Ways was called the Great Banishing Technique. The Great Banishing Technique didn't have any offensive or defensive power, but it had an extremely terrifying ability. It could communicate with all kinds of worlds. Then, it could banish the things it wanted to banish to the worlds it communicated with. The deeper one's cultivation of the Great Banishing Technique, the easier it would be to communicate with those worlds. Lin Feng performed the Great Banishing Technique and communicated with a mysterious space. His current cultivation was limited, coupled with the Great Banishing Technique. Lin Feng had already cultivated it to the initial level. It was still not enough to communicate with those powerful worlds. So now, Lin Feng could only communicate with one parallel space. Even so, it was enough to communicate with a parallel space. When the densely packed sword chi slashed towards him, the sword chi slashed at him. When everybody thought that Lin Feng was going to be cut to pieces by the sword chi, Lin Feng's expression changed. At this moment, Lin Feng's Great Banishing Technique unleashed its power and enveloped the 99 sword chi. Then, he banished the 99 sword chis into the mysterious parallel space. Just like that, Lin Feng dispelled the sword Dao Immortal Execution, which was originally almost unsolvable. The 3,000 Grand Daos were just so miraculous. They were all-encompassing and unfathomable. Why was the Red World Fairy so powerful? It was because she had learned all 3,000 of them, no matter what kind of divine ability one used. The Red World Fairy could easily find a way to break it. No one had expected Lin Feng to be able to break through Sun Aoxian's Sword Dao Immortal Slaying. Wanting to crack such a powerful divine ability was naturally as difficult as ascending to the heavens. No one would have thought that Lin Feng would be able to break the Sword Dao Immortal Execution divine ability. Therefore, when Lin Feng broke this divine ability, no one regained their senses. Even Sun Aoxian had a shocked expression on her face. Sword Dao Immortal Slaying was one of his ultimate moves. This divine ability was invincible before this. Sun Aoxian had even used this divine ability to defeat Sword Immortal Shuejiqian. Sun Aoxian was extremely confident in his Sword Dao Immortal Slaying, but now this divine ability had been broken by Lin Feng. This was quite a blow to Sun Aoxian. When Sun Aoxian came back to his senses, Lin Feng had already arrived in front of Sun Aoxian. He threw a powerful punch at Sun Aoxian. Sun Aoxian came back to his senses, and his expression changed slightly. But this person was indeed a top expert. At the moment when Lin Feng attacked, he reacted in time and attacked as fast as lightning, clashing fiercely with Lin Feng. After the two clashed, Sun Aoxian quickly retreated. He couldn't help but sneer, thinking that Lin Feng's punch wasn't that powerful. Heavens! How is this possible? Many people looked at Sun Aoxian in shock. Sun Aoxian noticed that everyone was looking at him strangely. Only then did Sun Aoxian come back to his senses. He also felt that the power in his body was rapidly declining. This shocked Sun Aoxian. He looked at his hands and immediately realized that his hands had turned into a pair of withered, old hands. This gave Sun Aoxian a great fright. because Sun Aoxian could already feel the terrible state of his body. In an instant, Sun Aoxian's lifespan and power were stripped away. Sun Aoxian's cultivation was declining. Sun Aoxian's body also became extremely old. Lin Feng's punch, just now, was billions of years in time, recorded in the first part of the Great Reincarnation Technique. This divine ability contained the power of time. It instantly stripped a cultivator of their lifespan, causing them to age and greatly weaken their combat strength. Sun Aoxian's cultivation was at its weakest right now. This was the best chance for Lin Feng to kill Sun Aoxian. If he missed this chance, killing Sun Aoxian would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Although he had only exchanged a few blows with Sun Aoxian, Lin Feng already had a general idea of Sun Aoxian's combat strength. That was why Lin Feng wanted to seize this opportunity to kill Sun Aoxian. Lin Feng quickly rushed towards Sun Aoxian. He immediately used the powerful divine ability, Rock Man Watching the Sea of Clouds, to attack Sun Aoxian. Sun Aoxian naturally knew what Lin Feng was planning. Therefore, Sun Aoxian no longer held back. He drew out the long sword on his back and held it in his hand. Then he sneered. This is the reincarnation technique of the Reincarnation Immortal sect, right? Impressive, truly impressive. You can actually comprehend the great reincarnation technique, which made my body age in a short time and caused my cultivation to decline greatly. But so what if I've fallen into your trap? Even in my weakened state, I can still kill you. Today, I'll show you what real sword skills are. Sun Aoxian finished speaking. He held the sword in one hand. He gently drew a line in the void. Instantly, a cold light overflowed. Along with that terrifying cold light, it surged out. Puff! Lin Feng's Rock Man Watching the Sea of Clouds was instantly torn apart. My sword is called the Heartless Sword. The 3,000 strands of troubles in the mortal world cut with a wave of the immortal sword. With a sword in hand, one can be respected. With a sword in one's heart, one can be a saint. As this cold voice rang out, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. The cold light illuminated the world. Sun Aoxian attacked with the Heartless Sword. Lin Feng was forced to retreat. What a powerful sword skill! It's simply impeccable. Lin Feng is completely suppressed. Sun Aoxian's sword skill is flawless. How can Lin Feng resist this? Will Lin Feng be killed? Many people exclaimed. At this moment, Sun Aoxian found a flaw in Lin Feng's defense. His eyes lit up. He held the sword and stabbed toward Lin Feng's head. That terrifying sword, it was about to pierce through Lin Feng's head. At this critical moment, Lin Feng's right hand suddenly appeared in front of him. Clang! With a clang, Lin Feng's two fingers caught Sun Aoxian's sword. Chapter 2364. How is this possible? Oh, my God, am I hallucinating? What the hell? Many people exclaimed. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Sun Aoxian had become one with the sword and was practically invincible. It was as if he would kill any god or Buddha that stood in his way. However, Sun Aoxian's exquisite sword technique had been broken by Lin Feng. Moreover, it had been caught by Lin Feng's two fingers. It was truly inconceivable, so much so that many people did not dare to believe that this was true. Even Sun Aoxian's eyes were wide open as if he had seen a ghost. No matter what, he couldn't believe what he was seeing was real. Such a stunning sword technique. It had been broken just like that. Sun Aoxian found it hard to accept. Lin Feng, on the other hand, was quite proud. His technique was an inheritance of the Celestial Master sect. It was called Golden Finger. It was said that when the Golden Finger was cultivated to a certain level, one's fingers would turn golden. By then, one would be able to easily carve out all kinds of formation runes. Of course, it could also block all kinds of attacks. It could be used to attack and defend. This technique was considered one of the top inheritances of the Celestial Master sect. This technique was recorded in the sacred scripture of the Celestial Master sect, the Stone Emperor scripture. It was also a technique that all disciples of the Celestial Master sect had to cultivate. Of course, it wasn't easy to cultivate this technique. It was very harmful to the fingers. Lin Feng's immortal divine body could constantly heal his injured body. That was why he was born with good conditions and was able to cultivate the golden finger. However, he was only at the beginner's level. Nevertheless, the golden finger was very powerful. Lin Feng used his golden finger to stop Sun Ao Xian's sword. He had no problem at all. Arm of the dragon elephant. When he caught Sun Ao Xian's peerless sword with the golden finger, Lin Feng began to use the fourth level of the archaic dragon elephant spell. Lin Feng used the peerless technique, the arm of the dragon elephant. He threw a punch at Sun Ao Xian. Lin Feng's Dracophant arm could destroy a planet with a single punch. From this, one could see how tyrannical the power of the Dracophant arm was. In the face of Lin Feng's ferocious and overbearing attack, Sun Ao Xian's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly raised his hand to block in front of his body. Bang! Lin Feng's attack landed heavily on Sun Ao Xian's arm. Sun Ao Xian wanted to use her arm to block Lin Feng's attack. However, the ideal was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. Lin Feng's punch was simply too powerful. Sun Ao Xian was unable to block Lin Feng's attack. His arm was broken. After breaking Sun Ao Xian's arm, Lin Feng's fist landed on Sun Ao Xian's chest. Crack, crack! Sun Ao Xian's chest also caved in. His body was sent flying, and he vomited blood in midair. Sun Ao Xian is severely injured. Many people cried out in shock. Sun Ao Xian was such a tyrannical existence. He had always been invincible since he started out. However, he had suffered a great loss at the hands of Lin Feng. There were many reasons for this. Sun Ao Xian was too arrogant and underestimated Lin Feng's strength. Sun Ao Xian was also unable to unleash his full strength after being hit by Lin Feng's Eternity Rush. However, no matter what the reason was, Lin Feng's attack had severely injured Sun Ao Xian. Sun Ao Xian was already in a weakened state. His combat strength had plummeted. Now he was severely injured. Being able to unleash 20 to 30% of his cultivation was already very impressive. Lin Feng, naturally, would not let go of the chance to kill Sun Ao Xian. Go! Sun Ao Xian gritted his teeth. He stomped his foot in the air and charged into the distance. Sun Ao Xian is trying to escape. Many people watched this scene in astonishment. Sun Ao Xian was a prideful person, yet he chose to run away. This was beyond everyone's expectations. You can't escape. Lin Feng sneered. He quickly chased after Sun Ao Xian and swung his Dracophant arm again. Bang! Sun Ao Xian was sent flying by Lin Feng's punch. Barf! He spat out a mouthful of blood in midair. Is Lin Feng really going to kill Sun Ao Xian? Sun Ao Xian is one of the top disciples of the Taishang Immortal Sect. If he's killed, the hatred will be huge. Although the Taishang Immortal Sect is not as strong as it used to be, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. The Taishang Immortal Sect is still the strongest faction in the 9 states. Offending the Taishang Immortal Sect like this is not a wise choice. You don't know, do you? I heard that Lin Feng and the Taishang Immortal Sect have long had a grudge against each other. I heard that the Taishang Immortal Sect even issued a mission to the Longevity Camp to find a top assassin to assassinate Lin Feng. However, the mission failed. So, Lin Feng doesn't have to care about the Taishang Immortal Sect's attitude, since they're already enemies. So what if he kills a few more people from the Taishang Immortal Sect? No wonder Lin Feng is so determined to kill Sun Ao Xian. I didn't expect him to be enemies with the Taishang immortal sect. Speaking of which, this Lin Feng is really strong. Although he's a little famous, who would have thought that he has such terrifying battle prowess? This is unbelievable. Many people started discussing when they saw Lin Feng chasing after Sun Aoxian. If Sun Aoxian was really dead, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Lin Feng, are you really going to kill me? Sun Aoxian's expression was unsightly. Lin Feng stepped forward like the Lord of Immortals from the absolute beginning era. His voice was cold. What's the point of saying all this now? I'll kill you today. Boom. A terrifying aura surged out of Lin Feng's body as he quickly charged at Sun Aoxian. I have no sword in my hand, but I have a sword in my heart. I will be the sword, slaying gods and slaying immortals. Suddenly, Sun Aoxian let out a long cry and put away his sword. Then he suddenly shot up. His body had turned into a sword. This was Sun Aoxian's ultimate move, turning his body into a sword to slay all living beings. Sun Aoxian's sword spewed out endless cold light as it slashed at Lin Feng, wanting to cut Lin Feng in half. Lin Feng sneered and used the Dracophon arm to fight Sun Aoxian. They clashed 9 times in a row. Sun Aoxian's ability was broken by Lin Feng. Lin Feng returned to his original form and punched at Sun Aoxian again. This time, Sun Aoxian could not dodge. Bang! There was a muffled sound of collision. Sun Aoxian's body directly exploded after taking Lin Feng's punch. His body and soul were destroyed on the spot. Chapter 2365. Lin Feng's display of strength had shocked too many people. Now, everyone looked at Lin Feng with deep respect. Lin Feng stood at the top of Heaven's Pride Peak. For a very long time, no one dared to challenge Lin Feng. He's made everyone tremble. No one dares to challenge him. This Lin Feng is too terrifying. Many people sighed. Sun Aoxian's death caused a huge commotion in the crowd. Sun Aoxian's reputation was too resounding. Many people believed that such an expert had the strength to contend for the top 10 of the Heaven's Pride rankings. But now, she had been killed just like that. Who would dare to challenge Lin Feng now? It was no different from throwing their lives away. Time passed. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The 9 peak keepers were extraordinarily strong. They all guarded the Heaven's Pride Peak that they occupied. The heavenly Tao is like the clouds, and the heavenly will is like the gods. The heavenly Tao is difficult to find, and the heavenly will is difficult to determine. Everything in the world has karma, and everything in the world has destiny. Suddenly, an ancient voice resounded above Heaven's Pride Peak. The voice sounded faintly discernible, mysterious, and unfathomable. As soon as the voice finished speaking, the restrictions on Heaven's Pride Peak appeared once more, trying to seal off the peak. Let's go, let's go. Every time the Yuanshu realm opens, only 9 people can comprehend the Tao on Heaven's Pride Peak. The others don't have the chance. Once they come out, Heaven's Pride Peak won't open again. There's no need for us to continue wasting our time here. Let's go, a cultivator said. Let's go, let's go. Who knows, we might find some heaven-defying fortune. The surrounding cultivators dispersed one after another, scattering to various parts of the Heaven's Pride training ground to search for their own fortune. Lin Feng sat cross-legged, comprehending the Tao of heaven and earth. Has your heart for the Tao ever been firm? Has your path to the Tao ever been bright? Do you have any inner demons in your heart? Suddenly, one voice after another resounded in Lin Feng's mind. This was the heavenly Tao interrogating Lin Feng. Lin Feng began to reflect on his own Tao, why he cultivated Tao, and what kind of Tao path he wanted to take. This was a deep interrogation of the Tao self. Tao self was too important for cultivators. Any cultivator who could reach the deity realm would have established their own Tao. This was the so-called Tao self. Tao was very complicated. This included the understanding of the great Tao, the understanding of Tao skills, the understanding of life, and so on. Lin Feng had once interrogated his Tao self, but at every stage, Tao is different. This was because of the change in his strength. Tao I can also change at any time and place. Therefore, cultivators often had to interrogate the Tao self. In the future, he would prove his Tao and become an emperor. The Tao in Tao affirmation actually referred to Tao self. It could be seen from this. How important Tao is to me. Lin Feng was questioning his own heart. This was a deep level of understanding and insight into one's Tao self. Lin Feng's Tao was the Tao of the Supreme Invincible. This was definitely a difficult path. He had to push all the way. Supreme Invincible. Who could compete with him? That was why Lin Feng was so difficult to break through. For half a month, Lin Feng had been questioning his own heart. Even the saints said, I reflect on myself 3 times a day. Since the saints did this, Lin Feng naturally should do the same. In half a month, Lin Feng had made up his mind and become more determined. He also saw the path he had to take in the future. Next, Lin Feng spent another half a month here to straighten out the various mystical abilities he had cultivated. Mystical abilities were the specific manifestation of the Tao. Just like the Great Death Technique, this mystical ability was the manifestation of the Tao of death. Tao was the foundation. Mystical abilities were a kind of expansion and extension. Tao and mystical abilities were closely related. Both were indispensable. Just like building a house, Tao could be compared to the foundation. Mystical abilities were like layers of buildings. The relationship between Tao and mystical abilities was so inseparable. If Tao left mystical abilities, it would be difficult to display the power of Tao. If mystical abilities left Tao, they would be like flowers in the mirror and the moon in the water. They could be seen, but they could not be touched. During the month on Tianjiao Peak, Lin Feng's various mystical abilities had advanced by leaps and bounds, and many of them had improved by leaps and bounds, although Lin Feng's cultivation did not advance. However, Lin Feng's battle strength had increased by at least 2 times. Moreover, Lin Feng felt that his Tao heart had become stronger, his dermic powers had become more condensed, and his mystical abilities had become more smooth. This was the consolidation of cultivation. Lin Feng felt that he was one step closer to breaking through to the heavenly God realm. Of course, Lin Feng also knew that with his own savings, it was too difficult to break through to the heavenly God realm. Therefore, he still needed to continue consolidating his cultivation. Breaking through was something that could not be rushed. Otherwise, it was very likely that it would cause irreparable damage to one's cultivation career. Lin Feng continued to cultivate in seclusion. The shackles of fate are about to be unlocked. The gears of fate will continue to turn. The power of fate will illuminate the world. Every life has its own destiny. Whoever can control the power of fate will become the darling of heaven and earth, the pioneer of the era, standing at the peak of heaven and earth, looking down on the myriad of worlds. When Lin Feng was cultivating in seclusion, ethereal and mysterious voices rang out in his mind. That voice made Lin Feng feel like he was in a profound and mysterious state of mind. Lin Feng felt as if he was looking at a huge gear. That gear was the gear of fate. Everything in the world, including living beings, flowers, trees, and even a rock, everything had its own destiny. The thing that controlled all of this was the rotation of the gear of fate. The Tao of fate. This is the Tao of fate. Lin Feng was shocked. The Tao of fate was extremely mysterious. It was ranked second among the 3,000 great Taos. From its ranking, one could tell how terrifying the Tao of fate was. The Tao of Fate was even more mysterious than the Tao of Karma, the Tao of Reincarnation, and so on. This was because it involved fate. Everything had its own destiny. If one mastered the Tao of Fate, they could even control the fate of others. This was too terrifying. Among the 3,000 great Taos, only the Tao of Fate surpassed the Tao of Fate. The Tao of Fate could control the fate of others. However, it could not change a person's fate. If one mastered the Tao of Fate, they could even change a person's fate. For example, a beggar. A person who mastered the Tao of Fate could change a beggar's fate, and the beggar might become an emperor. Of course, the Tao of Fate was also terrifying. If one could master the Tao of Fate, they could clearly see what had happened in the past and what might happen in the future. They could also find their weaknesses,